This man was cursed to be trapped in the tutorial tower for 12 years. Every time he cleared the final floor, he was sent back to the beginning. After hundreds of attempts, he grew frustrated and gave up. On his 433rd attempt, he even disguised himself as a beginner guide NPC, and by the 512th attempt, he became a training instructor just for fun. Without realizing it, 12 years had passed, until suddenly, a notification appeared. The curse will be lifted if you clear the tower this time. Could this finally be his freedom? But how did it all begin? One day, monsters began appearing all around the world, bringing destruction and panic. At the same time, a mysterious structure emerged, and people called it the Tutorial Tower. For the first time, humanity had to face this tower. Without mercy, the tower transported people from all over the world into it, forcing them to face brutal trials. Age, physical condition, or background didn't matter. The success rate for exiting the tower was only 20%, and those who succeeded were called hunters, humans with extraordinary abilities who became the new hope for mankind. For 12 years, the Tutorial Tower remained a mystery. However, when it was finally conquered for the first time, the world changed. Hunters became symbols of power and the new idols of society. Their fame and wealth rivaled that of celebrities. Nations began to consider hunters as a factor of national strength. To protect them, hunter associations and guilds were formed to maintain stability. In a famous television show all about hunters, the host introduced three special guests, the leaders of the best guilds in Korea: Seo Kwan-han from Guild Goryeo, Seo Yong-lee from Guild Orangs, and Hyeon-Woo Kim from Guild Seoul. The program gained massive popularity, with a rating of 35.7% last week. During the last segment of the show, the host asked the most frequently asked question from viewers. It's said there's a master who still lives in the Tutorial Tower in Korea. Who is this master? The three guests looked surprised hearing the question. The host continued, mentioning that he had read stories about this master online. He then asked, "Do the guild leaders know who this master is?" With a smile, Seo Kwan-han replied, "There's been a lot of news about him lately. It seems he's not dead and is still alive." His answer indicated that he knew who the master was. Seo Yong-lee added, "Everyone knows about him. He entered the tower with us in the first wave, 12 years ago. Hyeon-Woo Kim said that it might be a curse because only this master never left the tower. He completed every level only to return to the first and repeat it." The host tried to confirm, so this person entered the tower in the first wave, 12 years ago, and kept completing it over and over. The three of them nodded in agreement. Then the question arose, if the purpose of entering the tower was to gain power, would someone who has completed it multiple times have unimaginable strength? Some hunters who came out of the tower shared stories about this individual. They had seen the master complete the tutorial floor in just one day, an impossible feat. They suspected his power surpassed that of a normal hunter, possibly even on the level of rank A or S. However, even after conquering the tower, this person stayed inside and kept repeating it tirelessly. In one story, a party was seen running in fear, chased by a huge monster. But in the middle of the hallway, a man stood still, not moving at all. Suddenly, a massive explosion echoed, destroying the walls around him. Yet, the man remained standing fearlessly. Soon, a notification appeared. Tutorial Tower Level 100, monster for the final test. Before the man, a terrifying figure appeared, a giant monster named Balok. Many believed that if this man left the tower, he would undoubtedly become one of the strongest hunters. However, rumors about him continued to spark debates. Some claimed to have seen the master defeat 3 werewolves alone at level 72, or kick a level 10 monster with ease. But many believed these stories were just myths. In reality, the man fought Balok using only his feet. He stepped on the monster's head, smiling with a psychopathic expression. In just 3 seconds, Balok was defeated. A notification appeared. Balok defeated with the final blow. Casually, the man stepped on the fallen monster's body, wondering to himself, what else should I do to make this more interesting? Over the last 12 years, the time it takes for prospective hunters to complete the tutorial tower has gotten shorter. The tutorial tower across the world has the same content, so there have been no significant changes in the challenges faced. Because of this, each time a new group of hunters manages to make it out, information about their strategies and attack methods spreads worldwide. Many countries have raced to share this information to improve the survival chances of participants and to create the best hunters. However, despite more refined strategies and broader knowledge, only a few manage to conquer the tower. When prospective hunters reach level 99, they face the final trial, Balok, the ruler of the tutorial tower. This terrifying monster has become a nightmare for many. Of the 95 participants who managed to reach this level, only 25 made it out alive, while the rest lost their lives. Balok became a symbol of fear and an almost impossible challenge to overcome. However, there was one figure who was different. He was a man known as the Master, someone who had completed the tutorial tower 1,349 times. Standing in front of the exit portal of the tower, he closed his eyes, hoping that this time he could finally leave. But, as always, when he opened his eyes, he was back at the first level. The conquest began again. This time, it was his 1350th. Seeing this reality, he could only laugh bitterly. Frustrated, he shouted, wanting to go home, wanting to leave the tower. But his cries echoed in vain. He collapsed, lying on the ground, staring blankly at the information screen. His name was Hyeon-Woo Kim. He was 24 years old. In his heart, he thought repeating this over and over would no longer bring any new experiences. There were no more challenges, only the emptiness that kept repeating. 12 years ago, when Hyeon-Woo and his team first entered the tutorial tower, everything felt different. They were the first group to successfully reach level 100. Standing in front of the portal, they laughed happily, confident that their struggle was over. They promised each other to stay in touch in the outside world. But something strange happened. When Hyeon-Woo stepped into the portal, he suddenly found himself back at the first level. His friends were nowhere to be seen, and he was alone. Confusion turned into frustration as he realized he was trapped in the tower. In the subsequent repeats, he began to realize that he gained new abilities. But along with that, he also received the tower's curse. This curse prevented him from leaving. The only way to lift it was to complete the tower alone, without anyone's help. He tried everything. In the first 10 repeats, Hyeon-Woo strengthened himself, pushing his abilities to their maximum. In the end, even the stone pillars in the tower could be easily destroyed. But every time he reached level 100 and defeated Balok, he would always return to the first level. 5 years passed. In desperation, Hyeon-Woo tried everything to break the curse, but all his efforts were in vain. Eventually, he began to accept his fate. In repeat 433, he tried role-playing as an NPC, helping other participants who had just entered the tower. In repeat 512, he became an instructor, training new hunters to survive. However, there was one thing he couldn't stand, hearing stories about the outside world from participants who were about to leave. Every time he heard those stories, the feeling of isolation haunted him even more. Time passed, and Hyeon-Woo went through repeat after repeat without purpose, until finally, 12 years had passed. When he opened the information screen, he didn't expect anything to change. However, this time there was a new message that surprised him. The system notified him that Hyeon-Woo had completed the tower and was finally able to leave. Hyeon-Woo remained silent. After a moment, he smiled, then burst into joyful laughter. With the passion that had long been lost, he prepared to conquer the tower once again, this time for the last time. With burning determination, he took his stance, shot forward, and began tearing through each level of the tower at an incredible speed. Now, there was only one thing on his mind: the freedom he had been waiting for. Generally, the fastest time to complete the tutorial tower is around 10 months. In a popular TV program, the host asked whether the hunters from the 18th wave could break that record. SAO Young Lee explained that the number of hunters entering each wave differs, and the outcome heavily depends on their power combinations. Changes in strategy and results would occur frequently. Hyeon-Woo Kim added that success also depends on the individual and the effectiveness of their attacks. SEO Kwon Han interjected that the real challenge begins after level 51, as from that point, bosses with higher difficulty levels appear every 10 levels. He emphasized that from there on, luck no longer plays a role. Meanwhile, Hyeon-Woo, with renewed energy, continued charging forward, breaking through each level without concern for the monsters in his way. He pressed on relentlessly until he finally reached level 99. There, he stood calmly, facing Balok, the ruler. With all his strength, he struck the monster with such a devastating blow that the effects were even visible from outside the tower. The next day, in Hangdong District, Cheonho, at the entrance management area of the tutorial tower, a dimensional portal suddenly appeared. This event caused a stir at the monitoring office managed by the Korean Hunter Association. The association quickly prepared a list of names for the 18th wave participants to record who successfully made it out. From the portal emerged a human figure. It was Hyeon-Woo. He stepped out, looking around with a relieved expression. The towering buildings in front of him were a clear sign that he had finally made it out of the tower. Hyeon-Woo chuckled softly, surveying his surroundings, ensuring he was truly back in the outside world. Soon after, an association officer approached him to congratulate him on his success in leaving the tower. Hyeon-Woo turned to him, double-checking by asking if he had really made it out. The officer, though confused, confirmed that Hyeon-Woo had indeed exited the tower. Hearing this, Hyeon-Woo beamed, his eyes welling up. He shouted joyfully, "I'm out! Hyeon-Woo Kim is back." The association officer, hearing his name, immediately checked the list of the 18th wave participants, but Hyeon-Woo Kim's name was not there. Curious, he checked the first wave list. That's when he found Hyeon-Woo's name at the top. The officer was stunned to realize that the person in front of him was the legendary figure known as the Master, who had finally exited the tower after 12 years. A week later, the world's attention turned to Korea. People from all over the globe flocked to the tutorial headquarters, where the first evaluation of the 18th wave hunters would take place. This wave attracted attention because the world record for completing the tower was shattered, with a time of just 2 weeks. However, the main spotlight was still on Hyeon-Woo, the master hunter. In the evaluation waiting room, the 18th wave hunters appeared busy preparing themselves. They wore the basic gear provided earlier for the exam. But in the corner of the room, Hyeon-Woo sat relaxed, casually snacking without any gear on. The other participants felt confused and uncomfortable seeing Hyeon-Woo's relaxed attitude. Not realizing the situation, Hyeon-Woo asked one of the participants, "What is everyone wearing?" The participant explained that the gear had been distributed earlier that morning and was crucial for the exam. Without the gear, the exam would be much more difficult. Hyeon-Woo simply scratched his head, guessing he hadn't received the gear because he had overslept. Suddenly, an announcement echoed, instructing the participants to head to the exam location. The exam area was a special labyrinth designed by the Seoul Tutorial Center to evaluate the hunters' ranks. There, an examiner named David, an A-class hunter, stood in front of the participants. In a loud voice, he announced that the rank evaluation would begin soon. David informed the participants that the eyes of the world were on them. Some participants seemed burdened by the pressure. Seeing this, David smiled and tried to ease the tension. He explained that they didn't need to be overly nervous because compared to the challenges of the tutorial tower, this exam was just a formality to certify them as hunters. At the back of the room, Hyeon-Woo wasn't paying attention. He yawned and appeared sleepy. David continued his explanation, introducing the first exam. As he pressed something on his phone, a violent tremor shook the ground, startling the participants. Calmly, David explained that, as hunters, they needed to be prepared for various challenges, including escaping tricky situations like the labyrinth. The tremor had turned the floor behind David into a large labyrinth. He explained that the labyrinth was filled with traps. Although the exam was just a formality, he advised the participants to use all their strength. They had 30 minutes to escape the labyrinth. The participants quickly prepared and entered the labyrinth with high spirits, running and competing to be the first to get out. Seeing their enthusiasm, David praised their excellent mindset and looked forward to the results. However, while he was still deep in thought, Hyeon-Woo suddenly called out to him from behind. David turned, slightly confused, and asked what Hyeon-Woo wanted. Calmly, Hyeon-Woo asked, "Can I escape the labyrinth however I want?" David, curious about this participant, lowered his sunglasses and stared at Hyeon-Woo closely. Seeing that Hyeon-Woo wasn't wearing any gear like the others, David wondered if he was serious about the exam. But, as explained earlier, David replied that as long as he could get out by any means, it was allowed. He then asked seriously, "Are you underestimating this exam?" However, Hyeon-Woo responded casually, telling David to focus more on the other participants who were struggling. Upon hearing this, David's anger began to show. He felt that Hyeon-Woo was too arrogant, but Hyeon-Woo remained relaxed and confidently said, "How about we bet $1,000,000? I can escape the labyrinth in 20 seconds. David furrowed his brow, not believing what he was hearing, but Hyeon-Woo kept provoking him. "If you're scared, maybe you shouldn't bet," he said. Feeling challenged, David reluctantly agreed to the bet, though still doubtful. Hyeon-Woo walked toward the nearest wall of the labyrinth, placed his hand on the wall, and got into position. His left hand touched the wall, while his right hand prepared to strike. Seriously, he exerted a small percentage of his strength. The energy pressure he unleashed was so intense that his feet sank into the floor. David, watching closely, was confused about what Hyeon-Woo was going to do. Even Hyeon-Woo's old friends, who were the leaders of Korea's top guilds, seemed puzzled by his actions. When the power in his right hand was fully gathered, Hyeon-Woo punched the labyrinth wall with tremendous force. The wall seemed to soften momentarily before his fist broke through. The punch caused an incredible effect, destroying the labyrinth until it pierced through to the other side. Calmly, Hyeon-Woo walked toward the exit he had just created. Standing casually, he said, "I'm out." The observers in the observation room were stunned by the spectacle. Even his friends started to wonder if Hyeon-Woo was always this casual. He smiled, imagining the 1,000,000 won he would soon earn so easily. However, that smile slowly turned into a worried expression as he thought, "Will I have to compensate for destroying the labyrinth?" Meanwhile, 24 hours before the ranking evaluation exam, at a building called Live Hunter magazine, where news about hunters is updated, journalists were discussing what interesting news they would release. In addition to talking about the master, one man suggested highlighting a person who was gaining attention as a powerful hunter from the martial arts world. That person was named Lee Kang-hyun. During the labyrinth exam earlier, Lee Kang-hyun had made up his mind to become the star. With the talent, skill, and luck he possessed, he was sure he would catch everyone's eye. When other hunters fled in fear from a giant monster before them, Kang-hyun boldly prepared to face the monster with his sword. In his mind, he believed in his abilities. As a level 4 kendo master, Lee Kang-hyun had won various international kendo competitions and was known as a tough leader. This time, he hoped to be the center of attention, believing that the path to success was wide open for him. However, his mind wandered back to his first encounter with Hyeon-Woo at the tower tutorial. When they first met in front of the exit portal, Hyeon-Woo had shouted with excitement, stealing the entire spotlight that should have been his. Kang-hyun, who felt confused and annoyed by that incident, now found himself facing Hyeon-Woo again in the outside world. He felt he had to compete with someone completely different from him. Meanwhile, an announcement came from the exam committee stating that, for security reasons, the first labyrinth exam would be temporarily halted. Participants were asked to return to the waiting room and wait for the rescheduled exam. Chaos erupted in the reporter's room as they scrambled to find footage of the earlier event. However, all the clear footage only showed Lee Kang-hyun, This was because, at first, no one had noticed Hyeon-Woo, the disheveled figure wearing flip-flops. But now, that person was the center of attention. In the participants' waiting room, the tension was palpable. Kang Hyun sat with a serious and angry expression, while Hyun-Woo was peacefully asleep. The other participants whispered about the explosion caused by Hyun-Woo. Some even referred to him as the Master. But in his own mind, Lee Kang-hyun was undeterred. He thought to himself that this wasn't over, and there was still a chance for him to reclaim the spotlight. Soon, another announcement came from the exam committee. The order of the ranking evaluation exams has been changed and will resume in 15 minutes. Participants are asked to prepare. Hyun-Woo, who had been sound asleep, woke up with a groggy face. Meanwhile, Lee Kang-hyun remained lost in thought. He didn't care who Hyun-Woo was, whether he was a master or not. Kang-hyun was confident in his own skills. This time, the exam was the Monster Wave evaluation, where participants had to fight virtual monsters created with the latest technology and magical stones. Lee Kang-hyun entered the arena with full confidence. With his sword in hand, he unleashed an incredible amount of power. Lightning struck through his sword, grabbing everyone's attention. Full of energy, Kang-hyun launched continuous attacks, cutting down the monsters that stood in his way. One by one, the monsters fell quickly. This exam required participants to defeat as many monsters as possible within the time limit. When Kang-hyun's time ran out, he had managed to defeat 78 monsters, the highest among all previous participants. Kang-hyun smiled in satisfaction. Finally, he had earned the spotlight he had long desired. The reporters watching from another room praised his greatness. However, that pride didn't last long. The next name called was Hyeon-Woo Kim. With a sleepy expression, Hyun-Woo casually walked into the arena. Kang-hyun looked irritated by his relaxed attitude. The audience, who knew that the next contestant was the master, was extremely curious to see his performance. Even Hyun-Woo's old friends, who had once been in the same party with him, were eagerly waiting. Hyun-Woo was given 2 minutes to defeat as many monsters as possible. All eyes were on him. The atmosphere grew tense, waiting for what the master would do. The test began with numerous monsters spawning around Hyun-Woo. At the same time, a 10-second countdown began, giving him time to prepare. The audience waited eagerly, still wondering what kind of action the master would show. However, Hyun-Woo, standing casually in the middle of the arena, simply sighed, unaffected by the atmosphere. Even as the timer hit 0, he remained calm and made no significant movement. When the countdown finished and the test officially began, a large orc attacked first, swinging its massive club brutally. But with incredible speed, Hyun-Woo suddenly rushed toward the orc. In an instant, the orc's head was shattered. The action was so fast that it couldn't be followed by the human eye. The audience only saw the end result. The orc's head simply exploded. Only 4 seconds had passed, but the monsters around Hyun-Woo had already fallen one by one. All that was visible were their heads, seemingly exploding for no reason. The audience watching this unfold began to speculate. Many thought Hyun-Woo was using magic to destroy the monsters. However, in reality, Hyun-Woo was attacking each monster directly, approaching them one by one and crushing their heads with a simple physical strike. There were no complicated techniques or magic behind his actions. His movements were so fast that everything seemed like an illusion. Hyun-Woo's old friends watching from a distance were stunned. They wondered what Hyun-Woo had actually been doing in the tutorial tower. All they knew was that Hyun-Woo had always been known as a big name. But now, they realized one thing. Hyun-Woo had turned into something far more terrifying. A monster in human form. When the timer hit 0, signaling the end of the test, Hyun-Woo stood relaxed. In just 2 minutes, he had defeated 248 monsters. An incredible achievement. Hyun-Woo's actions quickly became the center of attention. A video of his test was uploaded with the title, The Master, and it quickly went viral. Many people questioned his strength. Some even assumed that Hyun-Woo was an S-class magician. Elsewhere, Lee Kang-hyun watched the news on his phone. His face turned red. His hands trembled. The spotlight he had just gained was now completely shifted to Hyun-Woo. It's unfair! In his rage, he destroyed his phone, throwing it until it shattered into pieces. Not only that, but the door of his room was also destroyed, and the surrounding walls cracked. He shouted in frustration, cursing Hyeon-Woo as a cheater and an absurd character. I've worked so hard, fought desperately, even hunted one extra monster when the other participants were already finished. But now, all his efforts felt wasted. On the other side, Hyun-Woo remained calm in his room. Suddenly, a woman named Alice came to visit him. Alice worked as an information manager and was part of the Korea Hunter Committee. She spoke at length, explaining the purpose of her visit. However, Hyun-Woo, who wasn't interested, only listened half-heartedly. In short, Alice had come personally to recruit Hyun-Woo to join the Ari's Guild. She handed him a contract. The contract contained the rights and responsibilities of Ari's Guild members, including payment details. When Hyun-Woo read it, he was surprised by the first clause. Once the contract is signed, the down payment amount listed will be paid in full to the member. Hyun-Woo counted the zeros on the number listed. The number seemed so long. Alice smiled and asked, "So, are you interested in joining?" Hyun-Woo just remained silent. He couldn't even imagine what it would feel like to receive an advance payment of 10 billion won. Before that, Hyeon-Woo asked since when the value of Korean currency had plummeted and whether a crisis had occurred. Alice responded that while there had been difficulties due to the appearance of monsters, Korea had not experienced an economic crisis. On the contrary, land prices had actually risen. Alice showed her phone to Hyeon-Woo, displaying the land prices around the area where he used to live. Hyeon-Woo was shocked to see that the land, which was once worth $3 billion, had now risen to $13 billion. He was stunned by the revelation. Alice continued, explaining that even though land prices had increased, Hyeon-Woo didn't need to worry too much, because the $10 billion mentioned in the contract was just a down payment. If he decided to sign a new contract after the first one ended, he would receive twice that amount. Hyeon-Woo fell silent, frozen at the thought of $20 billion. Alice added that, of course, he would have to share the loot from the labyrinth with the guild, but the distribution ratio would still be overwhelmingly in his favor. With a serious expression, Hyeon-Woo asked if handling guild contracts like this was really part of a Hunter Committee information manager's job. Alice explained that she had personal connections with a recruiter from the Aries Guild, who had asked her to deliver this proposal. Hyeon-Woo recalled that contract recommendations weren't allowed during the training period. Seeing his confusion, Alice told him that he didn't need to decide right away. However, Hyeon-Woo immediately stated that he had already made up his mind from the start. He had no intention of joining any guild. Alice smiled wryly at his answer, thinking he was joking, but Hyeon-Woo assured her that he was completely serious. He had no interest in working under the constraints of a guild. Alice, still unconvinced, could only let out a small laugh. After that, Hyeon-Woo returned to his room. He thought about how this world operated on a give-and-take principle. There was no way they would offer $10 billion without expecting something significant in return. He was certain that accepting the money would come with many complicated obligations. He didn't like dealing with such things and only wanted to live a comfortable, carefree life, doing whatever he pleased. He recalled his earlier debate with Alice. Before she left, Alice had asked if he had any intention of working as a hunter. Hyeon-Woo casually replied that he had heard of hunters who worked independently. Alice immediately dismissed the idea, saying that it was impossible for a hunter to explore labyrinths alone without a guild's support. She felt that Hyeon-Woo was being arrogant because, in reality, it wasn't as easy as he imagined. Before leaving, Alice reminded him once again to call the number on her business card if he ever changed his mind. Hyeon-Woo simply waved his hand and walked away. In his room, Hyeon-Woo regretted the time he had wasted taking the ranking exam. He thought that if he had known about mercenary hunters earlier, he would have just slept instead of wasting his time. He checked the list of guilds that wanted to meet him and noticed a familiar name. 5 days later, on the last day of the new hunter protection period, Hyeon-Woo met with his 3 former party members at a Japanese restaurant in Mokdo. He was surprised to see Seo-Kwan looking much older, even though they were close in age. Hyeon-Woo Kim, who used to be a grumbling high school student, had now grown into a handsome man, and Seo-Young, who once looked plain, had completely transformed into someone unrecognizable. Hyeon-Woo called out to Hyeon-Woo Kim, reminding him of how he used to whine whenever they faced the boss on the 50th floor. Hyeon-Woo Kim panicked and got angry, frustrated that Hyeon-Woo only remembered the embarrassing things about him. Then, Hyeon-Woo turned to Seo-Young and brought up the time she wet herself on the 14th floor. Seo-Young was furious and humiliated. After that, Hyeon-Woo happily enjoyed the sushi in front of him, still in disbelief that he had survived 12 years in the tower without delicious food like this. Hearing that, Hyeon-Woo Kim laughed, recalling the time on the 70th floor when they encountered a merman. Back then, Hyeon-Woo had been excited, thinking that the merman could be turned into sushi. They had also grown accustomed to the strange stories circulating about Hyeon-Woo outside the tower. Curious, Hyeon-Woo asked what kind of stories they meant. The 3 of them explained that he was so famous that everything he did in the tower had been broadcasted on TV. Hyeon-Woo was stunned, frozen at the thought that all of his actions had been widely exposed. He started wondering what kind of embarrassing moments had gone viral. It turned out that the most well-known stories were about him defeating a dungeon boss while dancing and clearing floors 1 through 10 using only kicks. With a slight sense of relief, Hyeon-Woo admitted that, yes, those stories were true. Hyeon-Woo Kim, still curious, asked what exactly Hyeon-Woo had been doing during those 12 years in the tower. Hyeon-Woo started explaining that when he fought while dancing, but then he paused and continued eating his sushi. His friends fell silent, eagerly waiting for him to continue. Hyeon-Woo simply shrugged and said he had done it on a whim, thinking it might somehow be a way to escape. Then, he went on to talk about how he had kicked his way up to the 10th floor. At the time, he was just bored, and when he jumped, he suddenly realized he could keep going up. Seo-Kwan, who had watched Hyeon-Woo's ranking exam, admitted that he had already thought Hyeon-Woo had become a monster. And now, after hearing these stories straight from him, he was even more convinced. But for Hyeon-Woo, his time in the tower had been nothing but frustration. He had tried every possible way to escape. After that, Hyeon-Woo asked if his disciple had made it out. Seo-Young was shocked to hear that Hyeon-Woo had a disciple. Hyeon-Woo then explained that back on the 50th and 60th floors, there had been a kid who got left behind in the tower. The boy had been terrified, and at the time, Hyeon-Woo, who was playing the role of a mysterious figure wearing a skull mask, had approached him and said, "Oh, weak human, do you wish to survive? I shall be waiting for you." With that dramatic flair, Hyeon-Woo claimed he had invented a new martial art and ended up taking the boy as his disciple. Seo Kwon was completely mind-blown by the story, but Hyeon-Woo admitted that he had been bluffing the whole time. He actually knew nothing about martial arts. All he could do was fight with brute strength. Thinking about it now, he started feeling guilty about the boy. On top of that, his bad personality made it seem like he had no conscience. He could only hope he wouldn't run into the boy in the outside world. He didn't want to get sued. Fortunately, he had been wearing a mask back then. After chatting for a while, the four of them started discussing the world that Hyeon-Woo had left behind for 12 years. Back in his room, Hyeon-Woo stared at his information screen in confusion. Some of the text had disappeared, as if he had reached the tutorial limit, and the number 36, his age, was also gone. It felt like the 12 years he had spent in the tower had vanished just like that. He began to think that from now on, he should live while making money, but still doing the things he enjoyed. However, one thing puzzled him. The words "freed from repetition" were still displayed on the screen. Curious, he clicked on it. Immediately, new text appeared. To proceed to the next stage, please clear 3 new dungeon bosses: a Doron laboratory, forest village, and the invisible swamp. Hyeon-Woo was still trying to figure out the details of this quest when someone called out to him from outside. He opened the door to find a hotel staff member, who informed him that someone from the Aries Guild wanted to meet him. Without hesitation, Hyeon-Woo told the staff to let them know he wasn't interested. However, the hotel staff, now flustered, explained that even though he refused, they were still insisting on meeting him. The staff practically begged him to at least hear them out. Realizing that this situation would only drag on if he didn't put an end to it properly, Hyeon-Woo sighed. Finally, as he closed his door, he decided to meet them just once and asked the staff to lead the way. On the first floor lounge, 2 members of the Aries Guild were already waiting. The moment he arrived, Hyeon-Woo made it clear that he had no intention of joining their guild. One of them, who introduced himself as the hiring manager for Aries, asked, "Will you really be okay?" Hyeon-Woo frowned. "What do you mean by that?" With a condescending tone, the manager smirked. "Do you really think you can get anywhere without joining Aries? If you join us, you won't have to waste your efforts on pointless struggles." Hyeon-Woo responded with a sly smile. "So, you came all this way just to threaten me?" The manager's bodyguard immediately flared up, furious at Hyeon-Woo's attitude. But the manager quickly signaled for him to calm down. The manager then continued, saying that he simply hoped Hyeon-Woo would take their offer seriously. He also suggested that maybe Hyeon-Woo didn't know much about the Aries Guild. But before he could say anything else, Hyeon-Woo cut him off. "Oh, I know plenty about Aries." He went on to explain that the Aries Guild was responsible for wiping out more than half of Korea's dungeons, widely known as a corrupt organization that abused its power. Hyeon-Woo had learned this from his 3 former party members. He also pointed out that Aries controlled 66% of Korea's dungeons, particularly D-class dungeons for rookies and A-class dungeons ideal for farming. With massive foreign investments, the guild was overflowing with money. However, any rookie who wanted to succeed only had 2 choices: pay an absurdly high entry fee or join Aries. The bodyguard, unable to tolerate Hyeon-Woo's insults any longer, slammed his fist on the table, shattering it instantly. The manager, still trying to maintain composure, gave Hyeon-Woo a warning. "Even within the Hunter Committee, you should be careful with your words," he said. "Aries has plenty of connections there." He then once again urged Hyeon-Woo to reconsider. To further intimidate him, the bodyguard grabbed what remained of the table and hurled it against the wall as if to flaunt his strength. The manager, full of confidence, then smirked and introduced his bodyguard. "This man is one of the strongest hunters, rated A overall. If you go up against him, you won't stand a chance." But Hyeon-Woo only smiled lazily. Without a hint of concern, he slipped off his flip-flops and stood up. Then, in an utterly casual tone, he told the bodyguard to come at him, because he'd only be using his flip-flops as a weapon. The bodyguard's face twisted with rage. He had never felt so insulted in his life. Cursing under his breath, the bodyguard clenched his fists, ready to punch Hyeon-Woo. But Hyeon-Woo remained calm, holding a flip-flop in his right hand. The moment the bodyguard's fist was about to land, Hyeon-Woo swiftly smacked his flip-flop straight into the man's face. The impact was brutal. The bodyguard was knocked out instantly, his body flung backward until he crashed into the wall, half of his torso embedded inside from the sheer force. The manager, witnessing this, was utterly stunned. He had seen Hyeon-Woo's training assessment footage before. Back then, he did think Hyeon-Woo was stronger than expected, but in his mind, he still saw him as nothing more than a frog trapped in a dungeon, thinking he was the strongest in the world. In this scenario, he had envisioned the power and influence of the Aries Guild should have been enough to make Hyeon-Woo kneel, but reality had completely flipped his expectations. His bodyguard had been completely wrecked by nothing more than a flip-flop. The manager's thoughts raced. How was this even possible? Hyeon-Woo had no magic, yet his strength was overwhelming. It simply didn't make sense. His thoughts were cut short when Hyeon-Woo casually began walking toward him. In a calm yet terrifying voice, Hyeon-Woo asked, "Do you know what I hate the most?" The manager, now backing away in fear until his back was pressed against the wall, couldn't find the words to respond. Hyeon-Woo continued, "I hate people who try to threaten me." With his flip-flop, now half destroyed from smashing the bodyguard, Hyeon-Woo delivered the same attack straight at the manager. Later that night, Hyeon-Woo stayed at Si-Hyun Kim's apartment. Si-Hyun, who had already heard what happened, warned him, "You should be careful. The Aries Guild is dangerous." But Hyeon-Woo, casually enjoying a fresh strawberry, simply chuckled and asked, "What's so dangerous?" Si-Hyun sighed. "They don't play around, Hyeon-Woo. Most people avoid getting into trouble with them." Still relaxed, Hyeon-Woo asked, "And how exactly do they handle problems?" Si-Hyun explained, "They can blacklist you, making sure no other guild will take you in, and if things get worse, they can even take you out in a labyrinth, making it look like an accident." Hyeon-Woo took another bite of his strawberry, savoring its sweetness. Didn't think they were that ruthless. But to Si-Hyun, the real ruthless one here was Hyeon-Woo himself. With a worried expression, Si-Hyun offered, "Why don't you just join my guild? You'd be safer that way." But Hyeon-Woo simply shook his head. "I already told you, I'm not joining any guild." Si-Hyun frowned. "Don't you want to live peacefully?" Hyeon-Woo let out a small sigh. "I do, but I'll have to put that on hold for now. There's something I need to take care of first." Then he suddenly asked, "Have you heard of Aderon Laboratory?" Si-Hyun looked confused, but Hyeon-Woo kept his thoughts to himself. 12 years. For 12 years, he had been trapped inside that tower. Why was he the only one who couldn't leave? Why was he forced to stay? These unanswered questions, his bottled-up frustration, had been building inside him for far too long. Who built that tower? Why did they imprison him for 12 years? Whoever was behind it, Hyeon-Woo was going to make them suffer the way he did. Si-Hyun, noticing his serious expression, asked, "Why are you suddenly asking about that place?" But Hyeon-Woo didn't answer. Instead, he asked, "Do you know anything about that dungeon?" Si-Hyun nodded. "Aderon Laboratory? It's a C-rank dungeon in Whejeongbu. It's considered a great place for rookie hunters to level up." But then he hesitated. "Though, I don't think you can get in." Hyeon-Woo frowned. "Why not?" Si-Hyun sighed. "Like I said earlier, the Aries Guild monopolizes most dungeons, and Aderon is one of them." Hyeon-Woo's expression darkened. "How is that even possible? Doesn't the government step in? Isn't there some kind of anti-monopoly law?" Si-Hyun replied calmly, "The government and politicians don't care about hunters. To them, we're not worth the trouble." He paused before adding, "Think about it. How many people actually make it out of the tutorial tower and become real hunters?" Hyeon-Woo paused for a moment, then asked again, "But I've heard people are getting killed inside the dungeon. Isn't that murder?" Si-Hyun explained, "Dungeons are extremely dangerous. No police officer would bother investigating. They just call it an accident." Hyeon-Woo furrowed his brows even deeper. "This is completely messed up," he muttered. Si-Hyun continued, "On the outside, Ares is seen as a leading company in this new industry. They pay their taxes on time, and the hunter profession outside the tower is highly respected by the public." Hyeon-Woo got up from his seat. "What if I sneak in?" Si-Hyun immediately warned him. "There are Ares members guarding the place 24/7. Hyeon-Woo thought for a moment before coming up with another plan. "Then I'll just walk in through the front door." Si-Hyun was shocked. "If you do that, you'll make an enemy of the entire Ares Guild." He reminded Hyeon-Woo of what happened earlier when he beat up the guild manager and the bodyguard, but Hyeon-Woo simply shrugged. The damage was already done. Meanwhile, at the Ares Guild headquarters, the higher-ups were discussing their expansion plans into China. One of them mentioned that the process would take at least 5 months. Seon-Woo, the head of Ares Guild in Korea and an S-class hunter, asked, how long would it take to expand into Russia or Japan? A subordinate answered, "For Russia, at least 8 months. For Japan, around 7. Seon-Woo smirked. "It doesn't matter if it takes time. What matters is that we stay one step ahead of the competition." He compared the situation to hunting. "We don't have to run faster than the dungeon boss. We just need to run faster than everyone else." He then instructed his subordinates to continue monitoring the progress. Not long after, a subordinate handed Seon-Woo a report, an analytical breakdown of Hyeon-Woo's stats that he had requested. As Seon-Woo reviewed the data, he was puzzled. Hyeon-Woo excelled only in strength, agility, and stamina. The rest of his stats were just average. "Is the machine broken?" he asked. The subordinate shook his head. "We had doubts too, but the analysis team confirmed the data is accurate. No matter how much of a margin of error there is, the results remain the same." "Have we tried recruiting him?" "We did, but he turned us down." Seon-Woo pondered for a moment. Recruiting someone like Hyeon-Woo could be beneficial at first, but if he failed to meet expectations, it could backfire. "A poisoned apple," he murmured. "Looks delicious on the outside, but deadly if you take a bite." After a brief silence, he finally said, "Forget recruiting him. Hurt him instead." The subordinate nodded in agreement. Elsewhere, at Cheonbosan Mountain in Whejeongbu, right at the entrance of the C-class dungeon, Aderon Laboratory, a woman was pleading with the guards to let her in, but the guards refused since she didn't have an entry ticket. With a hesitant expression, the woman explained that this was the only place she could hunt. With an irritating smirk, one of the guards sneered, "Then go to the labyrinth. Plenty of low-level monsters there. It's free after all." Another guard laughed. If she really goes there, she might not come back alive. As they were still arguing, Hyeon-Woo arrived at the scene. The guards glanced at him, dressed in sportswear, carrying no equipment. "There's no public restroom here. Go to the forest instead," one of the guards barked. Hyeon-Woo looked at him calmly. "I'm here because I have business inside this dungeon, not to look for a toilet." The guard's anger flared. "This place is no joke. It's filled with monsters," he shouted. Hyeon-Woo stepped closer, a small smirk forming on his lips. With an intense gaze, he casually said, "Are you stupid?" The guard grew even more furious, seeing the man in front of him, acting all high and mighty. He spoke with authority, trying to assert dominance, saying that people like Hyeon-Woo should know their place. But instead of reacting, Hyeon-Woo just casually bent down. With complete ease, he took off one of his sandals and said, "I can't just let this slide." The guards were utterly confused and enraged. They couldn't believe what they were seeing. With a faint smile on his face, Hyeon-Woo gestured for one of the guards to come closer, but instead of complying, the guard only grew angrier, barking at him and calling him insane. Before he could finish his sentence, Hyeon-Woo swung his sandal with lightning speed, striking the guard square in the face. The impact was so powerful that the guard was sent flying backward, crashing into the metal fence behind him. The fence shattered into pieces, and the guard lay motionless, unconscious. The remaining guard stood frozen, eyes darting back to his fallen comrade, now sprawled out and unmoving. Shock and fear took hold of him. Amidst the tense silence, he heard Hyeon-Woo casually mumble that he should have controlled his strength better. Hyeon-Woo then turned to the trembling guard, stepping closer. Without hesitation, he demanded the man's shoes. Confused, the guard stammered, asking what Hyeon-Woo meant by that. But Hyeon-Woo simply shot him a cold, piercing stare and asked, "Do you want to end up like him?" Overwhelmed with fear, the guard quickly removed his shoes and handed them over without another word. Hyeon-Woo slipped them on and nodded in satisfaction. "Not bad," he muttered, steel-toed, yet still light. Meanwhile, the guard stood there in despair, knowing full well how expensive those shoes were. Noticing his expression, Hyeon-Woo smirked. "Relax, I'm not that cruel." He tossed his old, broken sandals at the guard as compensation, then casually walked into the dungeon, completely ignoring the man's silent misery. Elsewhere, in Seongnam District, at the Seoul Guild headquarters, Seo-young was furious with Si-hyun Kim. "You just let him go?" she snapped. Si-hyun defended himself. "He left on his own. There was nothing I could do to stop him." Seo-young clenched her fists in frustration. She voiced her concern about Ori's guild's cunning nature. Si-hyun, though he agreed, reminded her that Yeon-woo was as stubborn as they came. No amount of reasoning would ever change his mind. Seo-young sighed, finally admitting how difficult it was to deal with someone like him. She recalled Hyeon-woo's nature, how he was usually calm and composed, but the moment he made an enemy, he wouldn't stop until he crushed them completely. Meanwhile, deep inside the C-rank dungeon, a figure stood at its core, Adoran, the dungeon boss. He had the unsettling appearance of a mad scientist, his grin twisted with obsession, his eyes filled with manic delight. Nearby, a group of hunters crouched in the shadows, carefully observing Adoran's movements. They knew taking him down wouldn't be very profitable. That's why Ares Guild had never bothered with this dungeon. Whispering amongst themselves, the hunters discussed their strategy. They were well aware that Adoran had high defense but weak attacks. With the right tactics and teamwork, they believed they could take him down. Just as they were about to move, their plans came to a sudden halt. Someone was walking straight into the boss's territory. Their eyes widened in disbelief. It was Hyeon-Woo. He strolled into the boss room with the same casual ease as if he were taking a leisurely walk. Now, he stood face to face with Adoran. The dungeon boss erupted into laughter, the sound echoing through the chamber. His face twisted with eerie excitement, as if he had just found a new plaything. With crazed enthusiasm, Adoran spoke, his voice dripping with anticipation. "So, where should we start the experiment? The eyes, the heart, or maybe the spine?" His grin widened as he stared at Hyeon-Woo with uncontained excitement. "Just say the word," he cackled. "Whichever you choose, I'll make sure to handle it perfectly." Hyeon-Woo's childhood was filled with sorrow. After losing both of his parents in an accident, he was left in an orphanage. His uncle took all the inheritance that rightfully belonged to him, leaving the boy with nothing but despair. Perhaps due to his disappointment with the adults around him, Hyeon-Woo grew up to be a kind-hearted person. However, if anyone tried to control or suppress him, he would turn against them. In such situations, he often displayed extreme tendencies, unleashing everything on his opponent. Back in Adoran's lab, the dungeon boss was still reveling in his excitement. To him, Hyeon-Woo was nothing more than a new test subject. But his joy was short-lived. With a swift motion, Hyeon-Woo delivered a devastating kick to Adoran's head, obliterating the dungeon boss in an instant. The party of hunters, who had been watching from a distance, stood in stunned silence. None of them had expected Adoran to be taken down with a single strike. Hyeon-Woo pulled up his system interface and saw the notification confirming the completion of Adoran's dungeon. Wasting no time, he set his sights on his next destination, Forest Village. The party, now realizing who was standing before them, felt a chill run down their spines. His signature hairstyle, his casual sportswear. There was no doubt about it. This man was the master, the #1 ranked hunter. They could hardly believe their eyes. At the Korean branch of Ares Guild, deep in the management sector on the 5th basement floor, the head of HR met with Hyeon-Woo, the branch's chief of operations. The HR head requested that Hyeon-Woo educate Hyeon-Woo properly. However, he also added that, regardless of the method used, it was fine if things got a little extreme. Hyeon-Woo raised an eyebrow. "Is that your personal request?" The HR head sighed. "Hyeon-Woo rampaging through our dungeon and taking down our guards has tarnished Ares Guild's reputation." Cheon-myung listened carefully, then gave a small nod. "Don't worry," he said. "I'll handle him myself, and I won't go easy on him." Satisfied with that answer, the HR head nodded and left the room. Meanwhile, somewhere else, Hyeon-Woo was busy playing with his new phone. Si-hyun had bought it for him, hoping to make communication easier. But 3 hours had passed, and Hyeon-Woo was still completely engrossed in taking random pictures. Annoyed, Si-hyun finally spoke up. "That forest village dungeon you asked about, my guild is in charge of it." Hyeon-Woo barely paid attention. Si-hyun continued. "Right now, there's no boss monster inside." That got Hyeon-Woo's attention. He immediately turned to Si-hyun, surprised. "What? Why not?" Si-hyun sighed and explained. "Dungeons in the real world are different from the tutorial tower. In the tower, monsters, including bosses, regenerate within a day. But in real-world dungeons, bosses take much longer to respawn." Hyeon-Woo's curiosity grew. "How long does the forest village boss take to regenerate?" "About a month," Si-hyun answered. "The last one was taken down 4 weeks ago, so it should respawn in the next 2 or 3 days." Hyeon-Woo nodded, relieved that he wouldn't have to wait too long. Then he asked about the invisible swamp dungeon. Si-hyun hesitated. "I don't know much about that one. Ares Guild has a monopoly over it." Hearing that, Hyeon-Woo's expression darkened. Even catching monsters had become complicated because of the influence of major guilds. Si-hyun, sensing his frustration, offered a suggestion. "You should register with the Hunter Association's ranking system. That way, you'll get access to more facilities, including support from the association. Not to mention, the pay isn't bad." At the mention of money, Hyeon-Woo's eyes lit up. "Wait, I can get paid just for signing up?" Si-hyun chuckled. "Not exactly. Every 2 to 3 months, you'll need to show your performance." He then explained the payment system based on ranking. Rank B hunters receive 1.3 million won, Rank A hunters receive 2.5 million won, and Rank S hunters receive 7 million won. Hearing those numbers, Hyeon-Woo's excitement skyrocketed. Without hesitation, he turned to Si-hyun and insisted, "Take me to the Hunter Association first thing tomorrow." The next day, Hyeon-Woo and Si-hyun visited the Hunter Association to use the ability assessment facility. As Hyeon-Woo prepared to register, the receptionist asked for his name. The moment Hyeon-Woo introduced himself, the receptionist immediately asked if he was the same Hyeon-Woo who had just emerged from the tower after 12 years. Hyeon-Woo casually confirmed it, while the receptionist, though trying to hide his curiosity, was visibly surprised. He assumed that Hyeon-Woo was just an average hunter, whose reputation had been exaggerated by baseless rumors. Confidently, he handed Hyeon-Woo the investigator's eye, an artifact capable of displaying a person's status in a holographic format and determining their class. Without saying much, Hyeon-Woo took the device and placed it on his hand. A hologram appeared. Initially, the display showed Hyeon-Woo as a B-rank hunter, and the receptionist found the result quite ordinary. He thought that if Hyeon-Woo was truly as famous as the rumors claimed, his rank should at least be B+. However, as he took a closer look to confirm the details, his face suddenly turned pale. Shocked, he let out a loud gasp, as if he had seen something impossible. It turned out that all of Hyeon-Woo's stats were at A rank. This revelation was earth-shattering. Never before had there been a hunter with a flawless assessment like this anywhere in the world. His stats even rivaled those of the world's #1 hunter. Within hours, news of Hyeon-Woo spread like wildfire. The internet was flooded with discussions about the newcomer with unprecedented stats. Meanwhile, Hyeon-Woo was casually scrolling through his phone, reading the news about himself. He looked surprised. His assessment results had only been released a few hours ago, yet the whole world already knew. As Si-hyun drove, he chuckled and said, "Well, what can you do? You're famous now?" He then warned Hyeon-Woo that the Ares Guild must have already seen the test results. Knowing them, they wouldn't stay quiet, especially after Hyeon-Woo had interfered with one of their dungeons. "They're probably gathering intel on you as we speak, so be careful," Si-hyun added. But Hyeon-Woo remained unfazed, casually scrolling through his phone. Suddenly, he burst into laughter after coming across a video online. In the clip, a hunter was striking a dramatic hero pose. Hyeon-Woo smirked. "Hunters these days sure are weird." Si-hyun let out a sigh. "That's me." Hyeon-Woo immediately froze, his laughter dying in his throat. An awkward silence filled the car. After a moment, Hyeon-Woo hesitantly asked, "Si-hyun, do you even have a real job?" Si-hyun glanced at him, confused. "What do you mean?" Hyeon-Woo explained, "Seo-kwan and Seo-young always seem busy, but you seem to have a lot of free time." Si-hyun furrowed his brows. "I'm busy too, you know. I'm the guild leader. Right now, I'm just making time for you. Hyeon-Woo chuckled softly at the response. Meanwhile, at Aries Guild, deep in the management office's basement on the 5th floor, the head of HR was staring at a monitor with a frustrated expression. On the screen was Hyeon-Woo's assessment. Everything ranked at A. The guildmaster had ordered him to eliminate Hyeon-Woo. But after seeing these overwhelming stats, he felt nothing but a splitting headache. A man beside him tried to reassure him. In a confident tone, he said there was no need to worry too much. He revealed that he had already summoned Cheon-Kang-shin, a hunter from China, who was on the verge of reaching S rank. Upon hearing this, the head of HR smirked. It seemed they still had a chance to handle Hyeon-Woo. That night, Hyeon-Woo headed to the Forest Village dungeon, which was managed by Si-hyun. The dungeon boss was expected to regenerate soon, and he was preparing for the upcoming battle. Accompanying him were Si-hyun and another man who appeared to be a porter. The three of them entered the dungeon at a leisurely pace, unaware that someone was following them in the shadows. The hidden figure grinned, believing he had found his prey. Danger now loomed over Hyeon-Woo and his team. On the way to the dungeon, Hyeon-Woo turned to the man with them. The man introduced himself as Park Ga-moon, a support-type hunter responsible for carrying monster drop items. Curious, Hyeon-Woo asked what exactly that meant. Si-hyun then explained that items obtained after defeating a dungeon boss could be exchanged for money. Their prices varied depending on the market, usually ranging from 20 to 35 million won. Hyeon-Woo, surprised by the price, still thought those items were useless. Si-hyun casually responded that someone dressed like Hyeon-Woo wouldn't understand. He added that the items could also be used to craft weapons or armor. Park Ga-moon then asked for permission to record Hyeon-Woo. Hyeon-Woo didn't mind and asked if recording could make money. Ga-moon nodded, explaining that earnings came from view counts and ad revenue. With a wide grin, Hyeon-Woo agreed, but only on one condition: an 80-20 profit split in his favor. Ga-moon broke into a cold sweat at the demand, but he didn't dare refuse. As they continued walking, Si-hyun handed Hyeon-Woo a map. He explained that the dungeon was structured like a labyrinth, so the map would help them avoid getting lost. Hyeon-Woo examined it carefully, scrutinizing every detail, but after a few moments he furrowed his brows, then casually tossed the map away. Si-hyun could only sigh in frustration. Eventually, they arrived at a massive forest, stopping in front of an enormous tree. Hyeon-Woo turned to Ga-moon and instructed him to start recording properly. Getting into position, Hyeon-Woo clenched his fist, channeling his power into his right hand. Once he was ready, he delivered a devastating punch to the giant tree before him. The impact was catastrophic. The ground caved in, every tree in its path vanished, and the entire forest flattened as far as the eye could see. Si-hyun and Ga-moon stood in shock, their mouths agape, while Hyeon-Woo remained completely unfazed, as if this were routine. At the far end of the newly cleared path stood a colossal, two-headed monster, the twin-headed ogre. Ga-moon, still recording, felt like he was witnessing something unreal. He never expected Hyeon-Woo to clear a path to the dungeon boss with a single punch. Hyeon-Woo casually signaled Ga-moon to come closer and keep filming. As the twin-headed ogre prepared to attack, Hyeon-Woo swiftly focused his power into his legs and leaped high into the air, causing the monster's strike to miss completely. Landing right on the ogre's shoulders, he wasted no time, delivering a powerful kick straight to one of its heads. The result? The twin-headed ogre collapsed instantly, completely defeated. Ga-moon was speechless. He continued recording with a stunned expression, muttering that Hyeon-Woo was truly on another level. Standing triumphantly atop the fallen boss monster, Hyeon-Woo remained calm, while Ga-moon excitedly praised how incredible the scene was. However, none of them noticed a mysterious figure watching them from the trees above. Meanwhile, at Aries Guild's management office in the basement of the 5th floor, Cheon-Kang-shin was discussing Hyeon-Woo's strength with the guild staff. He stated that he had thoroughly analyzed Hyeon-Woo's abilities. Just as the rumors suggested, Hyeon-Woo was a monster. Cheon-Kang-shin even admitted that Hyeon-Woo's power was extraordinary, despite being purely physical, completely devoid of magic or skills. He continued, saying that Hyeon-Woo's weakness was obvious, and he knew exactly how to exploit it. The Aries Guild staff then informed Cheon-Kang-shin that tomorrow Hyeon-Woo would be entering the Invisible Swamp Dungeon, one of their controlled territories. Cheon-Kang-shin smirked, declaring that he would arrive early to prepare for his encounter with Hyeon-Woo. The next day, at the entrance of the Invisible Swamp Dungeon, Hyeon-Woo stood still, glancing around. Something didn't feel right. A strange sense of unease lingered in his mind. Just then, his phone buzzed. A message from Seo-young popped up, reminding him about what he had said regarding the Aries Guild. Hyeon-Woo sighed, mumbling that they were worrying too much. Slipping his phone into his pocket, he walked toward the dungeon entrance with a relaxed expression and muttered, "Aries or whatever, I don't care." Before heading to the dungeon, Hyeon-Woo met up with Seo-young. With a worried expression, Seo-young asked why he insisted on going to a dungeon managed by the Aries Guild. Hyeon-Woo casually replied that he had something to take care of there. Curious, Seo-young pressed further. "What exactly do you need to do?" But with a mysterious smile, Hyeon-Woo simply said, "I'll tell you when the time comes." Seo-young tried to confirm once more. With a serious tone, she asked, "You're not doing this just to mess with the Aries Guild, are you?" Hyeon-Woo responded with a wide grin. That's part of it, too. Seo-young was taken aback, feeling a mix of shock and frustration. She knew that no amount of concern would change his decision. In the end, she gave up and simply warned him to stay out of trouble with the Aries Guild. She advised Hyeon-Woo to finish his business quickly and leave the dungeon before things got messy. Seo-young also reminded him that the invisible swamp dungeon was an A-rank dungeon, dangerous enough on its own. She suspected that the Aries Guild was waiting for the dungeon boss to regenerate so they could swoop in and claim it. Hyeon-Woo listened to her concerns, then smiled and said, "Thanks for the advice. Don't worry, I'll be fine." However, as Seo-young expected, avoiding the Aries Guild was nearly impossible for Hyeon-Woo. When he arrived at the dungeon entrance, several Aries Guild members blocked his path. The thugs of Aries Guild sneered at Hyeon-Woo, looking down on him for his plain attire. Hyeon-Woo met their gazes calmly and said, "Why haven't you changed? Even after I left the tower, you're still just as arrogant." His words struck a nerve. The thugs, feeling insulted, spat out curses and tried to intimidate him by flaunting their guild's name. One of them even drew his sword and lunged at Hyeon-Woo. But without breaking a sweat, Hyeon-Woo effortlessly took them all down. Once it was over, he walked straight into the dungeon without looking back. Inside, Hyeon-Woo strolled leisurely through the swamp. But lurking in the darkness, a pair of sharp eyes tracked his movements. The monster, a mega alligator, slowly crept closer, locking onto Hyeon-Woo as its prey. Mega alligators were known for their incredibly tough, magic-resistant skin. On top of that, their teeth were highly valuable on the market. Sensing the monster's presence, Hyeon-Woo grinned. "Looks like my prey has arrived," he muttered. Without hesitation, he launched a powerful kick. The sudden attack caught the mega alligator off guard. It hadn't expected its opponent to be this strong. With a confident smirk, Hyeon-Woo said, "Let's wrap this up quickly. I'm taking everything." Realizing the danger, the mega alligator instinctively tried to escape. But before it could flee, Hyeon-Woo swiftly grabbed both of its tails. With a psychotic grin, he asked, "Ever heard of the giant swing?" The mega alligator shuddered. Without wasting a second, Hyeon-Woo spun the monster around like a propeller. Then, with full force, he hurled it toward the nearby cliff. The impact was devastating. The cliff cracked, leaving a deep imprint of the mega alligator's body. Humiliated, the mega alligator refused to back down. It unleashed a dark purple aura, a sign that it was getting serious. In an instant, it appeared right in front of Hyeon-Woo, ready to strike. But Hyeon-Woo remained unfazed. "Still want to fight? Fine, I'll end this now." However, something unexpected happened. Just as Hyeon-Woo was about to land the final blow, his legs suddenly wouldn't move. A powerful magic chain had wrapped around him, completely restricting his movements. Hyeon-Woo glanced down in confusion. This wasn't the work of the monster. At that moment, the mega alligator opened its massive jaws and lunged at him, its razor-sharp teeth glinting in the dim light. From atop the cliff, Cheon-Kang-shin watched the scene unfold, a sly grin forming on his face. "It's over for you, Hyeon-Woo," he murmured, satisfied with the trap he had set. In that moment, Hyeon-Woo quickly used his unchained hands as support to dodge the mega alligator's attack. He glanced down at his bound legs, wondering what kind of magic had trapped him. Suddenly, a voice from the top of the cliff answered his silent question. "That would be a magic chain." Hyeon-Woo turned toward the voice and saw a man standing at the edge of the cliff. It was Cheon-Kang-shin. With a victorious grin, Cheon-Kang-shin continued, "This skill is perfect for capturing you." As he spoke, he confidently leaped down from the cliff, introducing himself as the one sent by the Aries Guild to deal with Hyeon-Woo. Still seated casually, Hyeon-Woo asked calmly, "So, you're basically a hitman hired by the Aries Guild?" Cheon-Kang-shin smirked. "Quick on the uptake, aren't you?" he replied as he approached. With a satisfied tone, he praised Hyeon-Woo. "I have to admit, you're impressive. Just now, I saw you swinging that mega alligator around like a toy and kicking the twin-headed ogre into oblivion. That was incredible." But his voice quickly turned sharp. "But can you still do that while bound by this magic chain?" At first, Hyeon-Woo remained relaxed, not taking the threat seriously. However, after attempting to break free, he realized that the chains weren't coming off. His expression shifted slightly. Seeing this, Cheon-Kang-shin grinned in satisfaction. "To break free from these chains, you'd need magic stronger than mine, and it has to be at least A rank. But you don't even have magic power. Do you even realize how bad your situation is?" he mocked. But Hyeon-Woo stayed unfazed. He looked at Cheon-Kang-shin with a blank face and asked, "Bad situation? I don't feel that way." Hyeon-Woo's nonchalant attitude, completely unaffected, made Cheon-Kang-shin irritated. Still, he tried to reassure himself and said, "People like you always pretend to stay calm while secretly scheming an escape. That cheap trick won't work on me." Hyeon-Woo just stared at him, looking as clueless as ever, which only made Cheon-Kang-shin lose his patience. Furious, Cheon-Kang-shin drew his sword from his back and prepared to attack. With lethal, venomous magic, he unleashed a powerful strike at Hyeon-Woo. A massive explosion erupted, engulfing the area in thick smoke. Cheon-Kang-shin smirked, confident that his attack had finished Hyeon-Woo off. However, as the smoke began to clear, he saw a silhouette. Hyeon-Woo was still sitting there, unbothered, untouched. With an innocent expression, Hyeon-Woo looked at him and asked, "What exactly are you trying to do?" Cheon-Kang Shin froze, unable to believe what he was seeing. Slowly, Hyeon-Woo stood up, and the magic chains that once bound his legs simply fell off, as if they had never existed. Panicking, Cheon-Kang Shin lunged forward, swinging his sword with full force. But before the blade could even reach Hyeon-Woo, his fist had already landed square on Cheon-Kang Shin's face. The punch sent him flying backward, slamming him into a tree with a violent crash. As Hyeon-Woo casually walked toward the fallen man, he said, "If you wanted to capture me, you should have chained my whole body, not just my legs." He glanced at the tree where Cheon-Kang Shin was pinned, then kicked it. With a single strike, the entire tree collapsed. Cheon-Kang Shin let out a terrified scream, realizing just how screwed he was. Hyeon-Woo stared down at him coldly and said, "If you wanted to kill me, you should have been ready to face the consequences." Without another word, Hyeon-Woo lifted the fallen tree, Cheon-Kang Shin still on top of it. And with one powerful motion, he hurled the entire thing straight into the swamp, right onto the mega alligator that had been resting in the water. The monster let out a furious growl, now caught in the chaos as well. Meanwhile, Cheon-Kang Shin, still clinging to the tree, screamed in panic as he was flung deep into the swamp. Unfortunately for him, he became nothing more than a meal for the starving mega alligator. All that remained was the sound of the swamp's water churning. Suddenly, a notification window appeared in front of Hyeon-Woo, informing him that he had completed the lowest tier validation mission. Hyeon-Woo stared at the notification, looking both confused and surprised. Meanwhile, at the Aries Guild's headquarters, specifically in the management office on the 5th basement floor, someone rushed in urgently to report to the management staff. With a grim expression, he delivered the bad news. Cheon-Kang Shin was dead. He explained that the tree Cheon-Kang Shin had been pinned to had sunk into the swamp, making it impossible to confirm the whereabouts of his body. Upon hearing this, the head of the management staff immediately concluded that the swamp monsters had likely devoured him. As he checked Cheon-Kang Shin's status information, the head of staff fell silent, deep in thought. A hunter with 2 S-grade stats and 7 skills. Someone that powerful was defeated by Hyeon-Woo? The reality of the situation made him chuckle bitterly, but that bitter laughter quickly turned into frustration. With a scowl, he cursed under his breath, furious over their massive failure. Elsewhere, in Sae-hyun's apartment, Hyeon-Woo lay on the couch, staring blankly at the ceiling. He seemed deep in thought. After a long silence, he closed his eyes for a brief moment, then suddenly opened them again. An information window immediately popped up before him. His name, Hyeon-Woo, was clearly displayed on the screen, along with a peculiar label in parentheses, Temporary Guardian. Additionally, he noticed a new skill had appeared, Status Authority. But what confused him even more was the unexpected invitation from the system. It read, "You are invited, Temporary Guardian. Time remaining, 2 hours, 34 minutes, and 21 seconds. Hyeon-Woo furrowed his brows, puzzled by the invitation. Does this have something to do with the tower? He wondered. Or maybe this is a chance to uncover more information about this mysterious system. Wanting to confirm, he quickly checked his phone. The invitation was set to activate at exactly 12 p.m. Not long after, Si-hyun returned home from work. Still lying on the couch, Hyeon-Woo called him over. He wanted to test his new skill, Status Authority. Focusing his gaze on Si-hyun, he activated the skill. Status Authority. A status window appeared, displaying Si-hyun's information, but most of it was obscured, making the details unreadable. Disappointed by the result, Hyeon-Woo muttered to himself, "This skill is useless." However, Si-hyun, who overheard him, completely misunderstood. Thinking that Hyeon-Woo was insulting him, his expression turned dejected. Realizing the misunderstanding, Hyeon-Woo quickly apologized, explaining that he had just been talking to himself. The clock struck 11:58 a.m. With only 2 minutes left before the system's invitation began, Hyeon-Woo remained seated on the couch, waiting patiently. He felt optimistic. Even though his new skills seemed useless, he believed that this invitation from the system was a sign that something significant was about to happen. More importantly, he hoped it would provide valuable insight into the tower. Finally, the clock struck 12 p.m. In an instant, Hyeon-Woo, who had been sitting on the couch just moments ago, suddenly found himself transported to a mysterious room. The room was empty, completely bare, except for a single table and 2 chairs. Hyeon-Woo took a seat, and across from him sat a woman. She exuded elegance and confidence. With a soft voice, she greeted him. "Welcome. It's a pleasure to meet you, Guardian. I am your assistant. My name is A.V." Hyeon-Woo's eyes widened in shock upon hearing her introduce herself. Repeating the name under his breath, he asked, "A.V.?" The woman nodded, offering a gentle smile. "Yes. You may call me A.V., as we will be meeting frequently, for as long as you live." Hyeon-Woo simply responded, "Okay." But inside, he felt a surge of excitement. Finally, someone who can explain everything to me. The reason why he had been trapped in the tower for 12 long years. However, the room suddenly fell into an eerie silence. A V said nothing, and neither did Hyeon-Woo. Confused, he finally broke the silence. Aren't you going to explain anything? AV tilted her head slightly and innocently asked, What kind of explanation are you referring to? Hyeon-Woo's patience started to wear thin. He stood up from his seat and demanded, You were the one who summoned me here, right? So there must be something you need to tell me. Lowering her gaze, AV spoke in a quiet voice. I'm sorry, but I am unable to answer your questions. Hyeon-Woo frowned. What do you mean unable to answer? AV explained that she could only provide answers within the limits of Hyeon-Woo's current authority, his status authority. Hyeon-Woo's expression stiffened. So, my status authority has to be upgraded first before you can answer anything? AV nodded in confirmation. At that moment, Hyeon-Woo recalled what had happened when he tried to check Sye-Hyun's status. Back then, the screen had only displayed a message stating that the information was undetectable due to his low authority. Frustration swelled within him. So everything boils down to this damn status authority? Once again, AV nodded, her expression serious. Hyeon-Woo took a deep breath before asking, Who trapped me inside the tutorial tower? But AV replied in the same flat tone. I cannot provide that information. Your status authority is too low. Hyeon-Woo clenched his fists. If I increase my authority, will you tell me who imprisoned me? But AV's answer remained unchanged. That is information I cannot disclose. Hyeon-Woo's patience was reaching its limit. A vein bulged on his temple as he gritted his teeth. Then what is the tutorial tower exactly? Yet again, AV responded in the same monotone voice. I cannot answer that due to your low status authority. One question after another spilled from Hyeon-Woo's lips. Why was the tower created? What was the true purpose of the system? But no matter what he asked, AV's answer never changed. Driven by frustration, Hyeon-Woo suddenly struck AV on the head, hard. AV flinched, her face filled with fear. But she quickly straightened herself and spoke in a firm tone. I am bound by the rules of authority. But that explanation did nothing to satisfy Hyeon-Woo. His presence grew overwhelming. An unmistakable aura of a psychopath seeped from his body. His voice turned cold, laced with menace. Don't tell me? You brought me here just to mess with me? AV trembled, her voice shaking as she responded. No, I summoned you to provide information, within the limits of your authority. Trying to steady herself, she cautiously added, There is something I can explain. Hyeon-Woo shot her a sharp, skeptical glare, but AV continued, her tone regaining some confidence. Guardian? A guardian is someone who protects. Hyeon-Woo's expression darkened, his aura twisting into something even more terrifying. That's it! He shouted. AV winced but forced herself to continue, her voice firm despite the fear in her eyes. You are currently only a temporary guardian. If you become a true guardian, you will gain access to all the information you seek, even the things you may not want to know. Hyeon-Woo's demeanor instantly shifted. His expression turned serious as he asked, How do I become a true guardian? AV then revealed that in 5 days, a crease would appear near his current location. Deep within the crease lay a key, one that could elevate his authority. If Hyeon-Woo could obtain that key, he would become a true guardian. After receiving that information, Hyeon-Woo was instantly transported back to Sye-Hyun's apartment. A notification appeared on his system screen. It was a quest. He had to retrieve a key hidden deep inside the Rift, located at Gimpo International Airport. Reading the quest details, Hyeon-Woo felt a surge of determination. This was his chance to finally uncover the truth behind the tower. With firm resolve, he vowed to complete this quest. The next day, Hyeon-Woo invited his 3 friends out for a meal at a restaurant. As they ate, he suddenly asked, What is the Rift? Si-hyun frowned in confusion. Why are you asking that all of a sudden? But instead of answering, Hyeon-Woo shot back another question. Why? What is it? Si-hyun's expression turned serious. The Rift is an apocalypse. Meanwhile, at the Ares Guild's Korean branch, the atmosphere was tense. The guild leader, furious beyond words, slammed his fist against the table, shattering it into pieces. He had just received devastating news. The powerful hunter they sent had been killed by Hyeon-Woo. The head of the management team could do nothing but bow his head in silence, offering his apologies for the failure. But the guild leader wasn't interested in excuses. His voice was ice cold as he turned to Manager Yu. Gather our strongest hunters. Kill him. To ensure success, he would also provide additional funding, a hefty sum to any hunter willing to take on the job. Without hesitation, Manager Yu nodded. Understood. The guild leader's expression darkened as he gave his final order. Make sure he's buried properly. His priority was eliminating Hyeon-Woo so he could focus on the Domination Guild, a Chinese faction that was rapidly expanding its influence, encroaching on their territory. Even now, masked forces from the mighty ruler were sweeping through Ares Guild members, further fueling his frustration. Meanwhile, Hyeon-Woo remained completely unfazed. Relaxing at the restaurant, his eyes were fixed on a small ring placed on the table. So, this tiny thing is worth 20 billion? Sao Kwan, the ring's owner, nodded casually. That's right. You can find stuff like this inside the labyrinth. Hyeon-Woo narrowed his eyes. What's the difference between a dungeon and a labyrinth? Sao Kwan leaned forward and explained. Dungeons only provide materials like mana stones and items you can use after defeating monsters. But in a labyrinth, you can find artifacts directly. Hyun chimed in, artifacts from the labyrinth can be used immediately, without any processing. That's why they're so expensive. Hyeon-Woo's curiosity grew. He attempted to check the ring's status, but authority level too low. His jaw clenched in frustration. What's the point of this skill if it won't even work? One thing was clear, though. After this mission, he had to enter the labyrinth. Suddenly, an idea popped into his head. With a relaxed expression, he called over the waiter. I'll take everything on the menu. Si-hyun and Seo-young, seated beside him, instantly froze. You sure you can eat all that? Seo-young asked, raising an eyebrow. Of course, Hyeon-Woo replied confidently. Seo-kwan simply chuckled and let him order as much as he wanted. But then, a thought resurfaced in Hyeon-Woo's mind. What exactly is the rift? The mood shifted. Si-hyun's eyes narrowed. Why are you asking that again? But Hyeon-Woo didn't answer. Instead, he asked another question. Why? What's the big deal? Si-hyun exhaled sharply before replying. The rift is a disaster. When it appears, the ground splits open, and monsters pour out, endlessly. As Seo-young added, in China and Germany, they call it Hellgate. Hearing that, Hyeon-Woo's expression darkened. So, you're telling me this isn't a big deal? AV? Were you seriously messing with me back then? With a serious expression, he turned to the three of them. If the rift appeared in Korea, what do you think would happen? The table fell silent. After a long pause, Si-hyun answered, his voice filled with concern. We might be able to stop it, but even a C-rank rift, the weakest level, can flatten an entire district. Seo-young added, smaller guilds will probably jump in first. Seo-kwan, who had been listening quietly, finally spoke, his tone cold. But Ares Guild, they'll waste time. They'll send disposable hunters first. And when the battle is almost over, they'll swoop in, acting like they fought from the beginning. Hyeon-Woo listened without changing his expression. Then he let out a long sigh. Trash. The single word carried all his contempt for Ares Guild. Then he turned to his friends, his eyes sharp. Eat well and rest for the next 4 days. Seo-kwan raised an eyebrow. For what? Hyeon-Woo simply smirked. You'll find out soon enough. 4 days passed. At Gimpo International Airport, a passenger waiting for their flight suddenly felt the ground tremble beneath their feet. An earthquake? They asked, puzzled. But someone nearby scoffed. An earthquake? In Seoul? No way. Yet the tremors only grew stronger. Within seconds, massive cracks began to tear through the airport runway. The fissures widened rapidly and panic erupted. People started screaming, running away from the growing chasm in sheer terror. A low rumble echoed from deep within the gaping hole. A new disaster had begun. Somewhere unknown, its location not specified by the author, a figure walked into what appeared to be a council chamber, filled with chairs arranged in a circle. Only one person sat among them. The newcomer stepped forward and reported, The 9th class has awakened. The seated figure looked up and asked, Fully awakened? The messenger shook their head. Not yet, but it won't be long before he receives his destined role. Hearing this, the person seated let out a sigh. This isn't the worst possible timing. Staring at a screen displaying Hyeon-Woo, they continued. In that case, let's see what he's really capable of. Back at Gimpo International Airport, chaos was erupting. The tremors had caused widespread panic, and the sudden appearance of the rift near the airport only made things worse. Residents within a 5-kilometer radius were urgently advised to evacuate. The airport was officially shut down, and the battlefield was becoming more intense by the second. The association continuously sent reinforcements, but monsters kept pouring out of the rift, non-stop, making the situation spiral further out of control. Even the hunters sent to contain the chaos were beginning to feel fear. Despite the steady stream of backup, the ever-growing number of monsters was overwhelming. Amid the chaos, one hunter shouted, Don't be afraid! If you panic, they'll just crush us harder. He activated his skill, Restrain, paralyzing a monster in front of him. Then, with one swift slash, he decapitated it cleanly. Another hunter nearby thanked him, but he snapped, Save the thanks for later. Get up now! But even as he tried to motivate the others, panic still brewed in his heart. There were just too many monsters. Things were spinning out of control. Where's the real backup? When will it arrive? He wondered. And then, something massive emerged from within the rift. It looked like a giant skull. The moment the hunters saw it, despair hit them like a wave. It was an A-class monster. The towering beast slowly raised its enormous club, ready to unleash a devastating blow. A hunter holding a shield rushed in, trying to block the attack, but the force of the strike was too much. He was sent flying, crashing violently into a nearby car. The monster lumbered toward him, lifting its club once more for the finishing blow. But just as it was about to bring it down, Hyeon-Woo appeared. With one powerful kick, he shattered the giant skull's head. Instantly, the monster disintegrated on the spot. Everyone who witnessed it froze. They couldn't believe their eyes. It was him, the master, the man everyone had been talking about lately. Hyeon-Woo, after defeating the giant skeleton with a single kick, suddenly received a notification on his screen. It told him he needed to prove himself by obtaining a key located in the deepest part of the rift, which was about to appear. He paused for a moment, wondering if he should go deeper into the airport. But before he could decide, he turned toward the hunters who had just witnessed his fight. They were still standing in shock, unable to believe what they'd seen. Seeing their expressions, Hyeon-Woo casually warned them that a swarm of monsters was closing in from behind. As he scanned the area, it was clear that plenty of monsters were still roaming around. He originally planned to head straight for the airport, but decided to stay and help, just for a bit. He picked up the massive mace left behind by the giant skeleton. Everyone around him was stunned that a human could lift something that enormous. Hyeon-Woo leapt high into the air with the mace in hand. At the peak of his jump, he spun his body mid-air and slammed the weapon down onto the incoming monsters. The impact was devastating. Everything in its path was crushed, even the ground beneath. A brief silence followed. No one could say a word. The hunters were completely dumbfounded. One of the hunter leaders, witnessing this incredible power, felt a surge of hope. Maybe, just maybe, they could survive this fight thanks to Hyeon-Woo. He rallied the others to hold the line until reinforcements arrived and instructed them to gather near Hyeon-Woo. But before they could act, Hyeon-Woo casually turned and started running toward the airport's core. "Handle the rest yourselves," he said nonchalantly, leaving them speechless once again. But this time, it wasn't awe. It was disbelief at how indifferent he seemed. Still, the hunter leader pushed through his frustration and encouraged the others to fight off the remaining monsters and hold on, even as he silently grumbled about Hyeon-Woo's attitude. The battle raged on. The hunters fought fiercely, but the wave of monsters kept growing. They were nearing their limit. The numbers were overwhelming, yet the leader refused to give in. With a fierce yell, he declared, "If we fall here, everyone outside dies." He urged them to hang in there just a little longer, convinced that backup would eventually come. Just then, an ogre charged at him from behind. But at the last second, someone drew a sword and activated the skill Single Sword, cutting the ogre down in an instant. The hunter leader turned and let out a relieved smile. It was Si-Hyun from the Soul Guild. Calmly, Si-Hyun slid his sword back into its sheath. "Looks like I'm not too late," he said. And he wasn't alone. His guild members were right behind him, ready for battle. Not long after, lightning struck from the sky, obliterating monsters in another part of the battlefield. People turned toward the source of the strike. The figure that appeared was Seo-Yoon, accompanied by her own team. Her elegance and beauty left everyone momentarily mesmerized. Seeing the two of them arrive, the hunter leader figured there had to be one more person on the way. And he was right. Someone pointed in another direction. Seo-Kwan had arrived with his forces. As all three teams gathered, the hunter leader felt a wave of emotion. They were finally saved. Seo-Young looked around, scanning the area for Hyeon-Woo. The hunter leader informed her that he had already gone deep into the heart of the rift. Si-Hyun seemed worried, but Seo-Young just smiled in response. Wasting no time, Seo-Kwan took the lead and commanded everyone to take out the remaining monsters and prepare to enter the rift's core. With his shield at the ready, Seo-Kwan charged into the front lines, plowing through every monster in his way and sending them flying. Meanwhile, Si-Hyun followed with effortless grace, slashing his sword through a group of enemies, cutting them cleanly into pieces. Elsewhere on the battlefield, Seo-Young unleashed lightning magic from her hands. Thunderbolt. Several magic circles appeared mid-air and struck down a horde of monsters in front of her. Meanwhile, deep inside the airport, Hyeon-Woo was busy wiping out monsters as he wondered whether the people outside were doing okay. Eventually, he arrived at the edge of a massive chasm, the rift. It was so deep that he couldn't figure out how to descend. That's when he noticed a pathway across the gap, one used by the monsters to climb up from below. He paused for a second, glanced left and right, then decided to use a nearby car to get down. But in typical Hyeon-Woo fashion, instead of using the car itself, he ripped off both of its doors and turned them into makeshift shields, or wings. With that, he launched himself high into the air and landed squarely on the monster-built path. The sheer force of his landing caused a massive explosion, with smoke billowing everywhere. As the dust began to settle, Hyeon-Woo appeared, holding a car door in each hand, grinning like a maniac. Without hesitation, he charged at the monsters scrambling up the path. With brutal force, he sent them flying, many of them plummeting back into the abyss. As he got closer to the bottom, Hyeon-Woo tossed away the car doors and dove down, free-falling toward the depths. When he landed, he stood atop a pile of freshly defeated monsters. He scanned the area until his eyes locked onto a figure emerging from the shadows. The creature had an ogre-like build, but its body was red and adorned with 3 sharp horns on its head. It was known as the Climber Scarlet Devil, but it wasn't the monster's fearsome appearance that caught Hyeon-Woo's attention. It was the key hanging from its waistband. Without a word, Hyeon-Woo dashed forward, ready to end the fight with a single blow. He aimed to finish it in one strike, but just as his fist was about to hit the monster's face, it swiftly dodged. Hyeon-Woo was shocked, but had no time to react. The Climber Scarlet Devil counterattacked with blinding speed, landing a powerful kick that sent Hyeon-Woo flying backward. Dazed, he was stunned to find a monster that could not only dodge his attack but strike back with such force. Before he could regroup, the monster was already closing in again. In a split-second decision, Hyeon-Woo managed to evade its follow-up attack, catching the monster off guard. Using that moment, Hyeon-Woo struck upward with his foot, landing a clean hit to the monster's chin. Then, without pausing, he got up and landed a punch to the monster's head, sending it crashing to the ground. But the monster wasn't done. It stood up again, clearly annoyed, grumbling angrily while pointing at Hyeon-Woo. Not understanding a word of the monster's rant, Hyeon-Woo simply ignored it. Like a bolt of lightning, he charged again with a punch. But once more, the monster managed to block it, and this time, it grabbed his fist mid-strike. Irritated, Hyeon-Woo immediately went for a follow-up with his left hand. Just before the punch could land, the monster suddenly emitted a strange purple glow. The light threw Hyeon-Woo off for a brief moment, and the monster took advantage of that split second to land another powerful kick. Hyeon-Woo was thrown back again, coughing from the impact. He now realized this monster was unlike anything he had fought before. Not even the ones in the tower came close. He had no choice. If he wanted to win, he'd have to use his hidden technique. Rising to his feet, he pointed at the monster and declared that it was going to die. He took a fighting stance, ready for battle. The monster looked confused, unsure what Hyeon-Woo was about to do. Deep down, Hyeon-Woo wasn't exactly thrilled either. He didn't want to use this technique again. The scene flashed back to his time trapped in the tower. Back then, in his frustration, he'd thought about how, in martial arts novels, a character often achieves enlightenment after mastering many techniques, helping them overcome impossible odds. Clinging to that idea, Hyeon-Woo had made up his mind. He would train in martial arts himself. But it wasn't just any kind of martial art. What Hyeon-Woo tried back then was inspired by animated films and web novels. Even though he knew it was all nonsense, he didn't care. What mattered to him was the hope that something might happen if he just kept trying. At first, he mimicked every cheesy martial arts move that popped into his head, but all of them failed. He tried again and failed, tried again and failed again. But on his 100th attempt, something completely unexpected happened. Looking back now, Hyeon-Woo considers that time utterly embarrassing, something he'd rather forget. But right now, he had no choice. He had to use that ridiculous technique again to face the monster standing before him. Both of them braced for an attack. As the monster's fist came dangerously close to Hyeon-Woo's face, at that exact moment, his own fist was already inches from the monster's. He called that move Destruction Punch, and the impact was devastating. In an instant, the monster's head was completely obliterated. The sheer force of the blow tore apart the surroundings, leaving a cloud of dust in its wake. Calm and composed, Hyeon-Woo sighed in relief, thankful that no one had witnessed what just happened. Just saying the name of that technique made him cringe. He hated remembering his old self. Then, he grabbed the key from the monster's remains. Suddenly, a notification popped up on his interface. Hyeon-Woo had successfully defeated the climber Scarlet Devil. His status screen changed, and the system officially invited him to become a guardian, with 3 days left to accept. As he stared at the message, Hyeon-Woo finally felt like he was getting closer to a real answer, about his power, and about his purpose. But unbeknownst to him, a drone hovered above. "What's that?" he muttered. It turned out to be a broadcast drone, live streaming everything on behalf of the association. At that very moment, the upper ranks of Guild Aries were gathered, watching the footage in silence. They had seen Hyeon-Woo's overwhelming power with their own eyes. The guild leader looked baffled. There was no way that man was just an A-rank hunter. His subordinate explained that the stats weren't from their internal analysis team. It came directly from the official Hunter Association data. Slamming the table in frustration, the guild leader snapped, "You're still denying it after watching that footage? You think he's just A-rank?" His subordinate said nothing. The guild leader, still fuming, added, "He's wearing nothing but a tracksuit. No magic, no items." But as he replayed the fight in his head, he slowly realized, raw power like that can't be judged by appearance alone. Turning to Deputy Manager Yu, the guild leader asked, "Do we have all the data?" Deputy Manager Yu nodded. "I've gathered everything I could for now." Smirking, the guild leader thought to himself, "There's one thing that even overwhelming power can't overcome." Then he ordered Deputy Manager Yu to prepare everything carefully and to launch the plan as soon as it was ready. The next day, at the Korean branch of the Hunter Association, a formal award ceremony was held. The award was presented directly by the Minister of Defense of Korea. But Hyeon-Woo didn't seem impressed in the slightest. As the minister approached to give him the award, he glanced at Hyeon-Woo's outfit and said, "Looks like I'll need to buy Hunter Hyeon-Woo some proper clothes." Casually smiling, Hyeon-Woo replied, "Don't worry about me." The minister was clearly irritated by Hyeon-Woo's lack of respect. After receiving the award and a bouquet of flowers, Hyeon-Woo just turned and walked off, without even saying goodbye. The minister stood there, stunned, thinking, what kind of guy is this? Meanwhile, his 3 friends could only smile at Hyeon-Woo's usual unpredictable attitude. The scene shifts to China, specifically to the outskirts of Beijing. Inside the fortress of Overlord Guild domination, a woman lounges in a pool, watching a massive monitor screen in front of her. A skull tattoo stretches across her back. She's watching a broadcast of Hyeon-Woo's battle against the Scarlet Devil. As she observes Hyeon-Woo's stance, something about it feels familiar. Pointing at the screen, she asks, "What's his name?" Someone nearby, likely one of her subordinates, replies, "He's the guy who recently cleared the Korean tutorial tower. His name is Hunter Hyeon-Woo." The woman, upon hearing the name, immediately orders an investigation into him. What do you mean by investigation? Her subordinate asks. Everything, she says. Leave nothing out. Every move he's made, from the past until now. The subordinate nods, acknowledging the command. Not long after, another subordinate enters, salutes, and reports that the process of taking over the Wei Yan Guild is going smoothly. He continues, explaining that they've successfully captured all the major dungeons in the southern region. However, during the operation, a conflict broke out with Guild Aries, and one of their executives was taken hostage. The woman steps out of the pool, her eyes sharp and intimidating. How could an executive get captured by a guild like Aries? She says coldly. It's disgraceful. Her voice turns stern. If he can't return on his own, then there's no place for him here. Her subordinate lowers his head in silence. She then commands, accelerate the guild takeover. We can't afford to fail just because of a single dungeon within the same territory. Gazing back at the screen displaying a blushing Hyeon-Woo, the woman gently strokes the image of his face and whispers in her heart, all of this is for the promise I made. Again, silently to herself, for the sake of that promise. Elsewhere, in a quiet cafe, Seo-yoon looks visibly frustrated with Hyeon-Woo. The media buzz around his outrageous behavior during the recent award ceremony is causing quite a stir. After receiving the award, Hyeon-Woo had walked off without a word. Hyeon-Woo, as carefree as ever, simply says, why bother thinking about that stuff? I'm gonna live the way I want. That only makes Seo-young and Si-hyun more exasperated. Seo-kwan, on the other hand, just chuckles dryly. Hyeon-Woo then excuses himself. Si-hyun asks, where are you going, Hyeon-Woo? I have an appointment, he replies. Seo-yoon looks shocked. Wait, Hyeon-Woo has friends? Yeah, he answers casually. Seo-young doesn't buy it, and her frustration deepens. Seo-kwan chimes in, why worry? He's strong enough to handle anything. Si-hyun adds, he's already made an enemy out of Aries, and now the media is blowing everything up. Ever since he left the tower, the number of people who want him dead has only increased. Seo-yoon sighs. What is he even trying to do? With a calm smile, Seo-kwan reassures them. Don't worry too much. He's not the type to act without thinking. Meanwhile, Hyeon-Woo walks into a narrow alley and opens his status screen. After a moment, a voice greets him. Nice to see you again, Hyeon-Woo, says AV. Yeah, same here, Hyeon-Woo replies. Wasting no time, he asks, has my authority level gone up? AV answers, yes. Since you defeated the Scarlet Devil, your authority level has been upgraded from lowest to low. Hyeon-Woo's face immediately darkens. His expression shifts into something twisted, almost psychotic. Are you messing with me right now? Terrified, AV quickly explains she's just relaying the information she received and begs him to calm down. But Hyeon-Woo grows more irritated. Which clown taught you that nonsense? AV blurts out, the system. What exactly has improved then? He demands. AV answers, there's no change in information access. Hyeon-Woo's rage only intensified. AV tried to calm him down, saying, now that you've officially become a guardian, I can guide you on what to do next. If you follow through, you'll get what you truly want. Still burning with frustration, Hyeon-Woo glared at her. But AV continued. You must stop the climbers. Curious, Hyeon-Woo asked. Climbers? They're beings that climb the tower, AV explained. Though Hyeon-Woo had spent so long inside a tower, this was his first time hearing the term. But AV wasn't talking about the tutorial tower. She was referring to another tower, one with 12 levels, Earth being one of them. Hyeon-Woo was stunned. His duty as a guardian was to protect the 9th level of that tower. Shocked, he froze for a moment. Everything had started from a simple question, a desire to learn who had locked him inside the tutorial tower. But now he was shouldering something far heavier, the fate of the world. Frustrated, he shouted, why does this keep getting more complicated? Why do I have more and more to deal with? V remained composed. If you don't stop the climbers on the 9th level, Earth will be destroyed. Hearing that, Hyeon-Woo slammed the table in anger. So, just because I have to do it, I'm supposed to sit back and accept it? Is that what you're saying? AV, slightly panicked, replied quickly, no, that's not what I meant, but that's basically how it is. Hyeon-Woo shot her a sharp, menacing glare. His voice dropped, heavy with pressure. Tell me the truth. If there's something I need to know, say it now. What exactly am I supposed to do? V paused for a moment. As one of the system's 9th level administrators, she shouldn't be this shaken. Regaining her composure, she firmly called out, Hyeon-Woo! He looked at her, eyes sharp with unwavering focus. But AV's resolve crumbled the moment she saw his serious expression. Flustered, she stammered, don't be so angry. The reason they chose you to be a guardian, it was for your own good too. It's meant to help you, and there are rewards. The more climbers you defeat, the higher your authority rank will be. Hyeon-Woo then asked the question he truly cared about. To get information about the one who created the tutorial tower, and the one who trapped me inside it, how high does my authority need to be? AV hesitated, then replied, to access that kind of information, you'll need to reach at least high-level authority status. Hyeon-Woo thought for a moment, then asked, so how many climbers do I need to defeat to reach that level? V let out a sigh before answering. Climbers are categorized into different classes. To keep it simple, You'll need to defeat 5 high-class climbers. That might be enough to boost your authority to high level. Hyeon-Woo narrowed his eyes, thinking. What class was the climber in the rift yesterday? Low class, AV answered casually. A grin spread across Hyeon-Woo's face. All right, that gives me a rough idea. That night, in Si-Hyun's apartment, Hyeon-Woo sat silently, staring at his status screen. His mind was racing. Truthfully, he didn't care about saving the world. That wasn't his concern. He wasn't going to waste time thinking about it. One thing was clear, he had to find the one who trapped him in the tutorial tower. And to do that, he needed to defeat high-class climbers. Suddenly, his phone rang. Seo Young's name flashed on the screen. Hyeon-Woo, something big just happened. Turn on the news, now, she said urgently. Hyeon-Woo grabbed the remote and flipped on the news. His face appeared on screen. Breaking news. Hunter. Hyeon-Woo is suspected of murdering a member of Guild Aries. The incident reportedly took place inside a dungeon owned by Guild Aries. Hyeon-Woo stared at the screen, emotionless. What kind of nonsense is this? But instead of getting angry, he smiled. A different kind of smile. The kind that said he was already planning his next move. The next day, at Seo Kwan's house, Hyeon-Woo was lounging lazily on the sofa while his phone kept ringing non-stop. Annoyed, he muttered, "What's all the fuss about?" Nearby, Seo Young was glaring at him, clearly fed up. Her voice rising in frustration, she snapped, "And whose fault do you think this chaos is?" She continued angrily. "The news of you leaving the tower after 12 years was already huge. Now that you've stopped the rift alone, even international eyes are on you. On top of that, there are murder rumors going around. I knew from the beginning you'd end up clashing with Ares." But Hyeon-Woo remained completely unbothered, not even changing his laid-back position. "There's no need to worry. Why stress about it?" That only made Seo Young angrier. Her frustration was practically radiating off her. "How can I not worry? Do you think you're still inside the tower or something?" As Seo Young kept lecturing him, Hyun-Woo couldn't help but think, why does this feel like I'm being nagged by a wife? I don't even have a girlfriend. With a relaxed grin, he teased, "Are you that worried about me?" Without hesitation, Seo Young shot back. "Isn't that obvious?" There was a brief pause before Hyun-Woo asked with a playful tone, "Do you like me or something?" Caught completely off guard, Seo Young's face turned bright red. Flustered and furious, she shouted, "You're joking now of all times! Say that again and I'll zap you with thunderbolt." A glowing orb of lightning formed in her hand. Breaking into a nervous sweat, Hyeon-Woo quickly turned away and muttered, all right, forget I said anything." He could tell another joke might actually get him fried. Just then, Si-Hyun entered the room, holding out his phone. "Your name is at the top of real-time searches. You're the #1 topic right now." With a serious tone, he began reading the headlines aloud. Hunter Hyeon-Woo, suspected of murder. Are his 3 fellow guild leaders also prone to violence? Testimony from a Guild Ares member assaulted by Hyeon-Woo. Evidence of destruction left behind in Ares Guild's headquarters. Si-Hyun looked at Hyeon-Woo, clearly exasperated, but Hyeon-Woo remained completely unfazed. Expressionless, he asked, "Why are you looking at me like that?" With growing gloom and frustration, Si-Hyun replied, "Our lives are crumbling on social media, and you're just sitting there like it's nothing? You want us all to go down with you?" Meanwhile, Seo Kwan, still smiling calmly, offered his own advice. "Just turn your phones off. That's what I did." Ignoring the complaints, Hyeon-Woo turned to Seo Kwan and asked, "When does the press conference start?" "In about 30 minutes, Seo Kwan replied. Then with a curious look he added, "Are you ready for it?" Seo Young and Si-Hyun were both startled. Their confusion only deepened when Hyun-Woo asked Seo Kwan to gather the reporters. "What are you planning to do?" they asked, nearly in unison. Hyun-Woo responded with a blank expression. "What do you mean what? You think I'd call for a press conference without having anything prepared?" But Seo Young and Si-Hyun weren't buying it. "With your personality, I doubt you're doing this to clear your name," Seo Young said suspiciously. Si-Hyun added with a serious tone, "You're trying to destroy Guild Ares, aren't you?" Seo Kwan burst out laughing at their wild guesses, while Hyun-Woo could only sigh in frustration at how far their imaginations were going. Over at Guild Ares, their leader was smiling smugly. Everything was going according to plan. The previous night, nearly every media outlet had picked up the story. Public opinion was already turning, and their efforts to ruin Hyun-Woo's reputation were finally gaining momentum. One of the subordinates reported, "Around 2 p.m. today, Hyun-Woo is expected to hold a press conference." The deputy manager chimed in, "With the way the public is seeing him right now, no matter what he says, it won't be easy for him to turn things around." Hearing that, the leader of Guild Ares smiled even wider. The one who takes the initiative wins. In his mind, Hyun-Woo was already too deep to back out now. All they had to do was stay one step ahead to completely corner him. Hyun-Woo already made the first foolish move. The more popular he gets, the more it'll backfire on him. He turned to his deputy. "Is this press conference going to be broadcast live?" The deputy nodded, adding that they had also dispatched a few people to the venue to keep an eye on things. Once again, the leader of Guild Ares smiled. Victory was within reach. In Mokdong, at the press conference hall, Hyun-Woo sat before a crowd of reporters, their cameras flashing relentlessly. capturing his every move. A barrage of sharp questions was thrown his way. Is the circulating news about you true? What was your motive for attacking Guild Aries? How do you respond to the murder allegations? All eyes were locked on him, but Hyeon-Woo remained silent for a moment. Then, with a calm voice, he said, "First of all, since I don't really know how these press conferences are supposed to go, I'll just do things my own way." He pointed at one of the reporters. "You, repeat your question." The reporter asked, "How are you feeling right now?" With a relaxed expression, Hyeon-Woo replied, "Good. Honestly, like crap." The entire room froze in shock. But before anyone could react, Hyeon-Woo pointed to another reporter. "Is it true that you killed a member of Guild Aries?" Without a hint of hesitation, Hyeon-Woo casually answered, "Yes." Faces across the room instantly turned grim, but before they could say anything else, Hyeon-Woo continued, "But I'd appreciate it if you waited to judge me until you hear what I have to say next." As he spoke, he pulled out his phone. The crowd looked on, puzzled. Then he played a voice recording. "I was sent by Guild Aries to take care of Hyeon-Woo." The voice was clear. It was the final words of Cheon-gang Shin, recorded just before his death. Reporters scrambled to record the audio, realizing they had just heard solid evidence. Guild Aries had indeed sent someone to kill him. Hyeon-Woo stopped the recording midway. One of the reporters immediately asked sharply, "Where did you get this recording?" Still calm, Hyeon-Woo answered, "Aries must have already told you that the invisible swamp was where a hunter named Cheon-gang Shin died. I went there to defeat a boss monster, but instead, I found myself in a situation I didn't expect, like this. And now the media is spinning it into some sensational drama, as if Aries is the only victim here." The reporter followed up, this time with a more serious tone. "So, are you saying Guild Aries is accusing Hunter Hyeon-Woo?" Wearing a cool, relaxed smile, Hyeon-Woo replied, "Isn't that exactly what they're doing?" The tension in the room escalated. Another reporter quickly chimed in, "Can you guarantee that the recording is authentic?" Audio can be easily manipulated after all. Hyeon-Woo paused for a moment, then smiled. "I was almost disappointed no one asked that," he replied. "At first I thought this recording would be enough proof. But if the press wants something more..." He raised his phone. "This phone belonged to the hunter sent to assassinate me." He went on to explain that he couldn't unlock the phone because it was password protected, but if handed over to the authorities, it could be opened. For now, he just brought it to show the reporters. Hyeon-Woo then asked what any of them would do if an assassin from Guild Aries came after them. He reminded them he was just a hunter who had recently exited the tower. He fought back simply because he didn't want to die. He explained that the assassin who attacked him got unlucky. During their fight, the assassin ran into the mega alligator, the dungeon boss in that area, and ended up getting thrown out and killed. One of the reporters asked if Hyeon-Woo was the one who killed the assassin. "You could say that," Hyun-Woo answered. "But it was because of his own carelessness during the fight, something that should have never happened." The reporters jotted down every word of his confession. Hyun-Woo then said he'd always heard Guild Aries was an impressive organization, which was why he initially considered letting the whole thing slide. But instead, they chose to blow the incident out of proportion. After the press conference ended, Hyun-Woo walked out, thinking to himself that this kind of annoying mess wasn't exactly new to him. When he saw the headlines, Guild Aries manufactured drama and false reports from Guild Aries, he smirked and thought, "They really thought I'd be an easy target? That's just plain stupid." Elsewhere, the deputy manager of Guild Aries looked furious as he read the reports. Hyeon-Woo had flipped their entire plan on its head with one simple trick, a voice recording. Just thinking about it made his blood boil, and he slammed his fist on the table. But after a moment, he chuckled and admitted that he used to think Si-hyun was just a hard-headed kid relying only on brute strength, with no clue how the world really worked. Then, with a serious look, he muttered that he had no intention of letting Hyun-Woo off the hook. At a restaurant, Hyun-Woo and his three companions were enjoying dinner together while chatting. Si-hyun said he was amazed Hyun-Woo had the foresight to record everything, as if he knew this situation would happen. Seo-kwan chimed in, saying he was also stunned while watching the press conference live. Seo-young added that she never expected Hyun-Woo to have Cheon-gang Shin's phone, and admitted she was impressed. She never thought he could be so meticulous, but Hyun-Woo casually replied, "That was all a lie." The three of them went silent. Si-hyun asked, confused, "Wait, are you saying everything you said during the press conference was a lie?" Hyun-Woo raised his phone and clarified that the phone he showed wasn't actually the assassin's, but the recording he played, that was real. He explained that because his friends kept warning him about how dangerous Guild Aries was, he got into the habit of recording whenever he left the house. Even he didn't expect that one of those recordings would come in handy like this. Seo-young suddenly panicked, warned that if the phone was examined, Hyun-Woo could be in serious trouble. She asked why he would risk telling a lie that could so easily be exposed. Hyun-Woo replied calmly, "That's not going to happen." Still frustrated, Seo-young asked why he was so confident. As he casually twirled his fork, Hyun-Woo explained that before he ever had to hand over the phone to the authorities, Guild Aries would definitely come for him first. And when that happened, he'd be ready to give them a little warning, to make sure they know not to mess with him. Hearing his explanation, Seo Young finally felt a bit more at ease. Still, deep down, she couldn't help but feel like she was the only one freaking out and overreacting like an idiot. As he picked up a piece of steak, Hyeon-Woo told them not to worry. While chewing his food, he thought about how Guild Aries was a massive organization based in the US, controlling dungeons and labyrinths across the globe. Out of all the countries, Korea was one of the places where they held the most control. Hyeon-Woo wondered if they'd come back with another stupid plan, or maybe try to strike a deal with him again. Either way, he didn't care. If a fight broke out, Aries had a lot to lose. But Hyeon-Woo? He had nothing to lose at all. After dinner, Hyeon-Woo and Sae-hyun walked toward their car. But just before getting in, Hyeon-Woo suddenly said he wanted to take a walk and told Sae-hyun to head home first. Sae-hyun hesitated at first, but eventually gave in, thinking Hyeon-Woo could handle himself. Hyeon-Woo strolled casually into a narrow alley. Once he reached the middle, he stopped. With a faint smile, he muttered that they'd shown up earlier than he expected. From the shadows, a group of assassins appeared and surrounded him. One of them told Hyeon-Woo that someone wanted to meet him and asked him to come along. Hyeon-Woo laughed at their outfits, mocking them for looking like medieval assassins, but none of them reacted. He then asked if the person looking for him was someone important from Guild Aries. One of the assassins replied that he'd find out, if he agreed to come, peacefully. Hyeon-Woo, still calm, asked what would happen if he refused. The assassin answered bluntly, in that case, they'd force him. Hyeon-Woo smiled and said that thanks to the rift, he'd become pretty famous. And yet, knowing that, they still tried something this stupid. He had to admit, they had guts. Then he stepped forward, startling the assassins. But instead of attacking, he simply pulled something out of the ground and pointed at the one who'd been speaking. In his right hand were a bunch of green onions. The assassin, clearly pissed off, lunged at Hyeon-Woo, yelling that they weren't like Cheongang Shin. They were stronger. But before he could finish his sentence, Hyeon-Woo smacked him straight in the face with the green onions, sending him flying backward. The rest of the assassins immediately charged in, swords drawn, chanting reinforcement spells. But what they didn't expect was that their blades couldn't even scratch Hyeon-Woo, like their swords had turned blunt. Long story short, the assassins sent by Guild Aries were completely overpowered and left sprawled on the ground. Only one was still standing, trembling, crying, and begging for mercy. Hyeon-Woo said he'd spare him, but only if he told him who was looking for him. The scene shifted to Gyeonggi, on the outskirts of Gwangju. There, hidden underground, was a secret bunker guarded by two people dressed just like the earlier assassins. They were casually chatting about Hyeon-Woo, exchanging gossip and rumors. But mid-conversation, Hyeon-Woo suddenly crashed down like a bomb, shattering the ground beneath him. He was dragging the same assassin who had begged for mercy, now unconscious. The two guards froze, stunned by his sudden arrival. And when they got a better look at who he was dragging, they were shocked. It was someone from Team 1A, the elite squad said to be the strongest unit in the entire bunker. Inside, someone who seemed to hold a high-ranking position within Guild Aries heard the noise. The thunderous impact was getting closer, coming from the direction of the lift. Suddenly, a massive explosion blasted through the elevator, slamming into the assassin Hyeon-Woo had brought with him. Everyone inside the bunker immediately sprang into action, ready to fight. Hyeon-Woo looked around in awe and casually remarked that he didn't expect a place like this to exist. Glancing at the Guild Aries members, he asked, "You guys must be loaded, huh? Building something like this underground?" The man who seemed to be the leader of Guild Aries asked who Hyeon-Woo was and how he managed to get into their bunker. Hyeon-Woo simply smiled and said they should already know. As a deadly aura began to radiate from his body, he continued, "I'm the angel of death sent to claim your lives." The scene cut to another location, a room that looked like it was used for interrogations. A woman sat in a chair, bound by cuffs and magical restraints. Standing before her, someone tried to provoke her by saying that Guild domination had abandoned her. That person turned out to be the leader of Guild Aries. With a mocking tone, he said, "Still being stubborn? You're going to die for real this time. But if you tell me the weaknesses of Guild domination, I'll grant you anything you want." The woman remained silent, showing not a hint of fear. Her calm defiance only enraged the Guild leader more. He ordered his subordinates to drag her back to the torture chamber, saying that if she really wanted to die, they'd show her exactly what death felt like. One of his subordinates, an assassin, hesitated and asked if they were really allowed to kill her. The Guild Aries leader shot him a cold glare and said he didn't care. If she wasn't going to talk, then she was better off dead. The assassin lowered his head and accepted the order, but just as he was about to carry it out, the door suddenly exploded open with a thunderous blow. The Guild Aries leader turned to see who had arrived. Hyeon-Woo strolled into the room and asked, "So you're the one looking for me?" But when he noticed the woman slumped in the chair, his focus instantly shifted. He stared at the Guild leader and said, "You invited me here, and yet I find someone else waiting for me?" Visibly panicked, the Guild Aries leader demanded to know how Hyeon-Woo had gotten there. He also asked what happened to the elite squad that had been sent to capture him. Hyeon-Woo responded with a relaxed smile, saying that the people he sent were still lying unconscious by the roadside. With a calm yet intimidating tone, he added, "So, What's it gonna be? You want me to beat you into the ground before I bury you, or do you want to talk? The assassins near the guild leader rushed forward, swinging their swords at Hyeon-Woo. But before they could even touch his neck, Hyeon-Woo launched a powerful kick, sending one of them flying. Glancing down at the fallen assassins, he said that he came because he was invited, but instead, they welcomed him with violence. He asked if all they wanted was to try picking a fight. The guild leader, watching the scene unfold, finally realized something. Hyeon-Woo wasn't just some average A-rank hunter. The bunker was filled with B-plus class hunters, and all the assassins were A-plus. Some of them were even on the verge of advancing to S-rank, yet none of them could lay a finger on Hyeon-Woo. He'd even stopped the rift by himself. At first, the guild leader assumed that the rift's boss had just been weak, but now, after witnessing everything, he began to suspect that Hyeon-Woo was an S-rank, maybe even a high-tier S-rank. As he got lost in thought, Hyeon-Woo interrupted, asking if he was deaf. He reminded him that he'd given him a choice: get buried after a beatdown, or talk. The guild leader felt humiliated and frustrated, but he knew this wasn't the time to act rashly. Reluctantly, he agreed. They needed to talk, negotiate with Guild Ares. The scene shifted to a new room, with chairs arranged around a round table. The guild leader knew one thing for sure. Until he figured out just how powerful Hyeon-Woo really was, he couldn't afford to make another careless move. He needed to stall for time and dig deeper. Before the guild leader could even come up with a strategy, Hyeon-Woo got straight to the point, demanding compensation. The guild leader looked at him in shock and asked if he was serious. Pointing his finger, Hyeon-Woo replied, "Of course I'm serious." He stated that Guild Ares had caused him significant harm, sending hunters to kill him, using the media to ruin his reputation, and now pretending like nothing happened. With a calm expression, Hyeon-Woo continued, saying he had no intention of letting them off the hook. The guild leader asked what it was that Hyeon-Woo actually wanted. Without hesitation, Hyeon-Woo said he wanted 10 billion won in damages, and on top of that, control over a few beginner dungeons owned by Guild Ares. Hearing this, the guild leader slammed the table in frustration, calling the demands outrageous. But Hyeon-Woo responded coolly, "Is that amount really a problem for you guys?" He pointed out that, for a guild as big as Ares, that number shouldn't even matter. The guild leader fell silent, realizing just how insane this man was. While 10 billion won might not hurt their finances, handing over beginner dungeons meant giving a rookie hunter full monopoly rights. Hyeon-Woo stared him down and warned that if they kept stalling, he'd add another 5 billion to the bill. The guild leader clenched his jaw but tried to reason with him. He said there was no benefit to continuing this hostility, and if Hyeon-Woo only wanted money, he should have accepted their contract offer from the start. He continued, if Hyeon-Woo was after authority and exclusive rights, then joining Guild Ares would be the smarter move. If he agreed, he could get everything he wanted. Rather than become enemies, the guild leader said, wouldn't it be better to work together and both profit? But Hyeon-Woo's tone suddenly shifted. Annoyed, he firmly said he was starting to lose his patience. The guild leader was caught off guard by the change in his voice. Hyeon-Woo made it clear. They were talking about compensation, not partnerships. He questioned why everyone in this guild acted so high and mighty. With a sharp mocking tone, Hyeon-Woo added that they strutted around, thinking they were powerful. But in the end, he had beaten them all down. And if they kept bringing up Guild Ares, he'd lose all interest in talking. Coldly, Hyeon-Woo gave the guild leader one final choice: accept his conditions or fight to the death. The guild leader said nothing, his face twisted in frustration. The scene shifts to Si-hyun's apartment. She was shocked when Hyeon-Woo suddenly showed up. But what surprised her even more was the fact that he was carrying a woman on his back. Confused, Si-hyun stared at him and asked, "Who is she?" In a place reduced to ruins, it seems like an entire world has collapsed. But in another world, someone stands, staring at a tall tower in front of him. He says, "Now, it's the 9th floor." The scene shifts to the next morning. Si-hyun looks at Hyeon-Woo in shock. Hyeon-Woo had managed to secure a compensation of 11 billion won and ownership rights to 4 beginner dungeons. As an additional reward, Hyeon-Woo also received something, or rather, someone, the woman he had carried last night. Si-hyun asks, "How did you manage to get all that from the head of the powerful Ares Guild?" Hyeon-Woo casually replies, he had no choice unless he wanted to die. Still curious, Si-hyun points at the unconscious woman and asks, "Why did you bring her here?" Hyeon-Woo answers, "As a hostage. Plus, there's something I need to find out." Si-hyun narrows his eyes suspiciously. "What exactly do you need to find out?" Hyeon-Woo glances at him and says coolly, "It's personal. Don't worry about it." Hearing this, Si-hyun hesitates but decides not to press further. "I'm heading out," he says. "A group of boss monsters just respawned today. I'm planning to capture them all." Hyeon-Woo simply waves his hand and says, "Be careful." After Si-hyun leaves, Hyeon-Woo stares at the tattoo on the woman's arm. His eyes sharpen. The tattoo looks eerily similar to the skull mask he wore inside the tower, but he wonders, is this just a coincidence? To be sure, Hyeon-Woo checks the woman's status. Her name is Hongrin, age 24. Aside from that, there's no particularly special information, and Hyeon-Woo is certain he has no memory of ever meeting her before. He thinks to himself, I'll just ask her directly when she wakes up. Moments later, an information screen pops up in front of Hyeon-Woo. It announces that a new climber has started ascending the 9th floor. But within less than a minute, another notification appears. The system is summoning Hyeon-Woo, now an official guardian. Caught off guard, Hyeon-Woo suddenly finds himself inside the AV room. With a serious tone, he asks, Why did you call me here? AV looks at him and says, He's coming. Hyeon-Woo frowns. He? Who are you talking about? AV calmly replies, The next climber. Hyeon-Woo's curiosity deepens. What's he like? When will he get here? AV simply displays the same notification screen that Hyeon-Woo had seen earlier. Without hesitation, Hyeon-Woo smacks AV on the head and says, Let me guess, you're about to say you can't tell me anything beyond what's on that screen, right? Holding his head, AV protests. I've told you countless times, there's nothing I can do. Your authority level is too low. Growing even more annoyed, Hyeon-Woo says, If you don't know what kind of climber he is or when he's arriving, then why bother calling me here? Just to repeat the same notification? AV quickly responds, That's not it. I invited you here because I have a request. Still skeptical, Hyeon-Woo asks, A request? What kind of request? With a serious face, AV explains, This climber will be tougher than anyone you've faced before. Before he arrives, there's something you must obtain immediately. Without wasting time, Hyeon-Woo asks, What is it? AV answers, You need to learn magic as soon as possible. Otherwise, it'll be dangerous. Hyeon-Woo smirks mockingly and says, Dangerous? Does that mean this climber is high level? AV quickly refutes, No. If it were a high-level climber, magic alone wouldn't be enough. The arrival of a high-level climber would basically mean the end of the world. Looking deadly serious, AV continues, You won't even be able to handle this mid-level climber without magic. Hyeon-Woo falls silent for a moment, then asks, Can't you tell where he'll appear? Or will there be another rift like last time? AV replies, I can't say for sure. There might be a rift, or there might not. The climber's arrival depends on their power, or their mission. Finally, Hyeon-Woo understands. A mid-level climber is about to arrive. He scoffed and said, So basically, you're trying to use me to deal with some unknown threat. That's what you're getting at, right? His fist clenched, ready to punch AV again. Still holding his head from earlier, AV tried to defend himself. Why are you always so angry and violent towards me? Haven't you ever heard the saying, You shouldn't hit a vulnerable woman? Were you raised wrong or something? He said with frustration. But Hyeon-Woo's reply made AV fall silent. I don't have parents, Hyeon-Woo said. They died in an accident when I was a kid. AV froze and lowered his head. In a regretful tone, he said, I'm sorry. I didn't know. I shouldn't have said that. But Hyeon-Woo just gave a small smile and replied, It's fine. I don't really think about it much. You don't have to feel guilty. Hearing that, AV simply fell silent, staring at Hyeon-Woo with a confused expression. Deep inside, he started wondering, maybe Hyeon-Woo isn't such a bad person after all. Meanwhile, at the Guild Arang building in Gwangjin, Hyeon-Woo was training in magic under Seo-Young's direct guidance. But even after 4 days, there had been no significant progress. Seo-Young was getting frustrated. She had never heard of a hunter struggling like this before. Although magic was Seo-Young's specialties, and she had been doing her best to help, Hyeon-Woo's magical abilities simply refused to develop. It was a situation she'd never encountered. Just then, Saihyun came in, bringing a letter for Hyeon-Woo. It turned out to be an official notice stating that Hyeon-Woo had founded a guild. Surprised, Seo-Young asked, When did Hyeon-Woo start a guild? Hyeon-Woo explained, Since I have a dungeon now, I thought it'd be good to try new things. I named it Guardian. Both Seo-Young and Saihyun looked skeptical, thinking the name didn't really suit Hyeon-Woo's character. Annoyed, Hyeon-Woo changed the subject. Anyway, what about the woman I brought back? Has she woken up yet? Saihyun answered, She's still asleep. Worried, Hyeon-Woo said, Don't tell me she's brain dead or something? Saihyun quickly replied, No way. The nurse said she's just in shock. Hyeon-Woo let out a sigh of relief. I've been busting my ass every day, but I still can't use magic. The worst part is, I don't even know what magic is supposed to feel like. Seo-Young, clearly stressed, said, Maybe we should find someone who can implant magic into you? Saihyun immediately guessed, You mean Nakagawa Yasumi? Hyeon-Woo's eyes widened. Implant magic? What do you mean? As Seo-Young explained, Nakagawa Yasumi, the leader of the Izanami Guild in Japan. I've heard she has a unique skill called acupoint. She can boost magic power in hunters who struggle to awaken their abilities. Excited, Hyeon-Woo quickly pulled out his phone and searched for Nakagawa Yasumi's profile. Looks like I'll have to go to Japan to meet her, he said, already feeling a bit annoyed at the hassle. Meanwhile, in Tokyo, Japan, disaster had struck. A climber had arrived, bringing chaos in his wake. Nakagawa Yasumi and her guild members were desperately trying to hold him back, but they were being overwhelmed. Yasumi shouted at the climber, Who are you, really? The climber responded, Maybe it's fate that you managed to dodge my sword, so I'll answer your question. People call me many things: climber, destroyer, devil, even thunder god. But my true name is Cheonma. Back with Hyeon-Woo, he received a notification that the new climber on the 9th floor had officially arrived. Without wasting a second, he ordered Sai-hyun to get ready to leave. On the way, Hyeon-Woo thought to himself, I still don't have any magic skills? Could this be a problem? Sai-hyun, knowing Hyeon-Woo's reckless habits, complained, Bro, I know you're always impulsive, but dragging me all the way to Japan just to implant magic? That's crazy. Hyeon-Woo simply replied, Hey, I've got other business there too, so it works out. Sai-hyun asked again, But do you even have a passport? Hyeon-Woo froze. Oh crap. But deep down, he knew, I have to catch that climber. Inside the conference room of the Japan Branch Hunter Association, a man asked Nakagawa Yasumi, How are you still alive, Nakagawa? I heard you died fighting Cheonma yesterday. It was all over the news. Nakagawa replied, Thanks to one of my artifacts, I was able to come back to life. The man pressed on. Is Cheonma really that strong? Nakagawa answered seriously. Yes. The man continued. News of your death, one of the top S-class hunters, has spread around the world. Because of that, no other hunters are willing to help us. Another person standing beside him added, We're finished. The first man spoke again, frustration clear in his voice. If Nakagawa couldn't win, there's no way the three of us, who are barely any stronger, could succeed. There are no volunteers left. The hunters we sent out have been wiped out. The civilian casualties are enormous. Are we really just going to stand by and watch this happen? At that moment, their eyes were drawn to the CCTV monitors showing the situation outside. There, they saw Hyeon-Woo had arrived in Japan and was now standing face to face with Cheonma. Hyeon-Woo and Cheonma locked eyes. Hyeon-Woo tried to scan Cheonma's status, but no information appeared. He thought to himself, Is my skill useless against climbers? Then Hyeon-Woo asked Cheonma, So, the theme this time is a historical drama from the East, huh? Cheonma didn't answer. Instead, he raised his sword and slashed toward Hyeon-Woo, but Hyeon-Woo was already one step ahead, swiftly moving behind him. He clenched his fist, ready to strike, but Cheonma easily blocked his punch. Frustrated, Hyeon-Woo muttered, Quit swinging that sword around and just answer me. Cheonma, preparing to attack again, said, I'll answer you, since you managed to dodge my blade. As he launched another attack, he declared, I am Cheonma. His sword came slashing down at lightning speed. Hyeon-Woo quickly ducked, dodging the powerful aura of the strike. He's fast, Hyeon-Woo thought, but not unbeatable. It looks like a single attack, but he's actually chaining multiple strikes together. If I get hit even once, I could be sliced into dozens of pieces. I need to stay close. That'll give me the advantage. Without hesitation, Hyeon-Woo closed the distance and launched a punch. At close range, Hyeon-Woo's strength shined through. His fist broke through Cheonma's defenses and struck him in the stomach. Cheonma coughed up blood, stunned. Before he could react, Hyeon-Woo dashed in again, pressing the attack. Shocked that a climber like himself could be wounded by someone from Earth, Cheonma unleashed a storm of lightning, sending bolts crackling in every direction. He walked toward Hyeon-Woo casually and asked, Who are you? Cheonma continued, On the previous floors, and the ones before that, no one has ever been able to rival me. Elsewhere, Sai-hyun, who was on site, was shocked by what he saw. Right after getting off the plane, Hyeon-Woo took off running without saying a word. Si-hyun wondered why Hyeon-Woo was standing there, and thought to himself, could it be he already knows when the rift will appear? Back to the battle between Hyeon-Woo and Cheonma. Hyeon-Woo kept dodging Cheonma's unpredictable attacks, but despite the fierce assault, he still wore a smile. He shouted, Another crazy skill, huh? Hearing the word skill, Cheonma's pride was clearly wounded. He wasn't about to let his techniques be downgraded to mere skills. With a sharp glint in his eyes, he unleashed another powerful attack. Seeing the surge of aura coming at him, Hyeon-Woo realized something. If he retreated now, the distance between them would only widen. Without hesitation, he made a bold decision to charge forward and fight head-on. Hyeon-Woo quickly closed the gap, grabbed Cheonma by the collar, and slammed his forehead into Cheonma's head with a brutal headbutt. But he didn't stop there. While Cheonma was still reeling from the impact, Hyeon-Woo immediately followed up with his special move, Destruction Punch. The devastating blow struck Cheonma hard, sending him flying backward. It looked brutal, but even so, it wasn't enough to finish Cheonma off. Slowly, Cheonma rose to his feet, blood dripping from the corner of his mouth, yet his face was still calm and confident. As he walked forward, he spoke in a steady voice. I'll say it again. While speaking, he activated a deadly technique. A dimensional rift tore open, unleashing bolts of lightning in every direction. You're impressive, he continued, but that doesn't mean you're unbeatable. His expression turned cold and serious as he locked eyes with Hyeon-Woo. Since the day I first became a climber, I've never experienced anything like this. But now, he raised his sword high above his head. I'm going to use everything I've got. Seeing the shift in Cheonma's aura, Hyeon-Woo immediately sensed the danger. This wasn't just any ordinary attack. This was something powerful enough to erase him from existence with a single blow. Thinking fast, Hyeon-Woo realized the only way to survive was to stay close to Cheonma, to minimize the impact of the devastating technique. Then, with a swift, almost casual swing, Cheonma unleashed his move, Extreme Thunder Spirit Sword. In an instant, the entire area transformed into a violent vortex of energy, as if the world itself was centering around Cheonma. Standing firm, Cheonma looked at Hyeon-Woo and said, "Your instincts are sharp. When I swung my sword, you grabbed my collar and spun your body. But even then," he added, "you couldn't completely avoid my attack." Nearby, Hyeon-Woo staggered, barely holding himself up. Although he dodged the direct hit, the lightning that exploded from the attack had spread through his body, leaving him in excruciating pain. Just when it seemed like his body was about to give out, a notification suddenly popped up in front of him. Magic proficiency has increased. Hyeon-Woo froze, confused. How did that happen? Quickly regaining his senses, he stepped back to catch his breath, putting distance between himself and Cheonma. Seeing Hyeon-Woo still standing, Cheonma spoke in an icy tone. "I wonder if your luck will hold out a second time." As he spoke, he began activating the same deadly technique once more. But this time, the aura radiating from him was even more overwhelming than before. Watching this unfold, Hyeon-Woo thought to himself, "Incredible. This isn't some system-granted skill. This is a technique he created himself." Then he realized something. If this Cheonma was truly the same one that appeared in countless novels, then the man standing before him was a legend, a warrior who had reached the highest pinnacle of combat, the strongest man in the world, Cheonma. Cheonma, starting to lose his patience, asked, "Even after witnessing my Thunder Spirit Sword, you still insist on fighting?" Hyeon-Woo gave a slight smile. "You think that's enough to scare me?" Cheonma's irritation deepened. "Arrogant fool, have you not realized yet that you can't win against me?" Hyeon-Woo let out a small laugh. "You're right, I can't beat your power right now." But even as he said that, he moved his hand, feeling something different stirring within his body. "Your thunderbolt? It seems to have awakened my chi." Cheonma froze, caught off guard by those words. Hyeon-Woo's mind drifted back to the days he was trapped inside the tower, endlessly training in various martial arts. There was one technique he had never been able to master back then, the demon art. In the novels about knights, it was said that demon art was an absolute power, something only the greatest beings in the world could wield. Back then, Hyeon-Woo had no internal energy. He didn't know how to use chi in real combat. All he could do was mimic the movements he had read about in novels. But now, everything had changed. Suddenly, something incredible happened. From Hyeon-Woo's back, something like wings of light began to emerge. Smiling, he said, "In the last 10 seconds, you became my teacher, Cheonma." Enraged, Cheonma immediately launched a fierce attack at Hyeon-Woo, who was still floating in the air with his glowing wings. But before the strike could land, Hyeon-Woo swiftly descended to the ground. Staring directly at Cheonma, he said with confidence, "Let me show you what I've learned from you." In his heart, Hyeon-Woo began gathering all his power into one point. He focused all his energy into his legs, preparing to unleash the new technique he had just grasped. Cheonma, noticing the strange movement, wasn't about to stand idly by. He raised his sword once more, preparing to finish Hyeon-Woo with a single decisive blow. But before the sword could fall, Hyeon-Woo moved first. With one explosive leap, he shot forward and struck Cheonma with a technique he had named Kick of Destruction. The power behind the attack was overwhelming, so fast it couldn't even be followed by the naked eye. Even the surveillance cameras recording their battle shattered from the shockwave. When the dust and smoke finally cleared, only one figure remained standing, Hyeon-Woo. Cheonma was nowhere to be seen. At that moment, a screen appeared before Hyeon-Woo. "You have successfully defeated the climber Cheonma." The scene shifts to Pado Castle, the headquarters of the Domination Guild. Inside the massive fortress, the guildmaster sits on his throne, eyes locked onto a screen, broadcasting a live battle between Hyeon-Woo and Cheonma. The moment he witnesses Hyeon-Woo's devastating kick of destruction, he can't hold back his emotions. No doubt about it, that man is master, he thinks. Suddenly, memories from the past flood his mind. Back when he was alone, cornered, and beaten by monsters inside the tower, he was on the brink of despair. But just when everything seemed lost, someone appeared. Someone who saved him. Someone who taught him how to fight. The very first person he ever called master. The memory stirs something deep inside him. He misses his master. He wants to see him again. Soon, several of his subordinates enter the room. "Which areas are left?" the guildmaster asks. "The Eastern Dungeon, currently held by the Yawn Guild," one of them replies. "If we take that, the entire Chinese region will belong to the Domination Guild." The guildmaster nods, a sly grin forming on his face. "Wrap it up in 1 month, he orders. "I'll make my move when my master returns to this world. I swore to create a kingdom worthy of him." With a faint blush, he murmurs to himself, "I need to hurry. I have to see him again." The scene transitions to Gimpo International Airport. Hyeon-Woo has just landed in Korea. A massive crowd awaits, journalists and fans lined up to welcome him. He never expected this kind of reception. Reporters bombard him with questions, especially about the rift that recently appeared in Japan. Overwhelmed, Hyeon-Woo lets out a long sigh. What is going on here? He thinks. He raises his hand, trying to calm the crowd. Everyone, please relax. If you have questions, direct them to Sae-hyun over here. Caught completely off guard, Sae-hyun freezes in panic. Why me? He thinks in disbelief. Meanwhile, Hyeon-Woo casually slips away from the chaos, leaving Sae-hyun stunned. Back at Sae-hyun's apartment, Hyeon-Woo, now annoyed from all the unexpected trouble, is suddenly shocked once more. A woman he once saved is standing there. Hongrin is awake. She bows her head respectfully. I want to thank you again, she says softly. You saved my life. Hyeon-Woo is momentarily speechless. Hongrin, this woman. I rescued her from the Ares Guild. He already looked into her background. She's an executive of the Domination Guild. She was captured by the Ares Guild during a battle to defend her dungeon. Despite being tortured, she survived. But that's not what shocks Hyeon-Woo now. He immediately asks, That tattoo on your hand? What does it mean? Hongrin gently touches the tattoo and replies, It's the symbol of an executive in the Domination Guild. Our leader told us it means we all live under the same sky. Hyeon-Woo's expression shifts, shock, then unease. The sky? What does that mean? Cold sweat starts to form on his brow. Hongrin continues. He said, No one stands above you. The only thing above is the sky. Everything else is beneath you. Suddenly, Hyeon-Woo slams the table, startling Hongrin. Did I say something wrong? She asks, frightened. He composes himself and says, No, you didn't. But deep down, he thinks, the one who was wrong was me. Back then, I believed in all that nonsense without question. He reflects on his time in the tower. I followed everything from web novels and anime like it was the answer to life. I suffered like some naive teenager obsessed with cartoons. Anger boils inside him, and then it hits him. Why? Is the person I saved now the leader of the Domination Guild? He fixes his gaze on Hongrin and says in a deep, firm voice, When you return to the Domination Guild, tell your leader this. Don't come looking for me. Never. A few days later, Hyeon-Woo was invited to appear on the TV show All About Hunters. His 3 friends, who were watching the show, were shocked to see him on screen. Seo Young, clearly confused, asked, Why is Hyeon-Woo up there? Sae-hyun, acting indifferent, replied, He said he had something to announce. I don't really know, just that it was important. Seo Young pressed further, still confused. What's going on with you? Is something wrong? On the show, Hyeon-Woo appeared with a serious expression and didn't waste any time. I'm just here for a bit of publicity, he said bluntly, pointing directly at the camera. I've just created a new guild, and we're now recruiting members, so if you're interested, sign up. After the show, Hyeon-Woo returned to his apartment, only to be stunned by the mountain of application letters waiting for him. They were piled up like a mountain. Standing beside him, Sae-hyun glanced at the stack and said, Yeah, don't expect me to help with all that. Hyeon-Woo simply replied in his head, Well, at least I'm not doing this alone. Hours later, Si-hyun, Seo Young, and Seo Kwon, the leader of one of Korea's top guilds, were all still there, helping Hyeon-Woo sort through the endless paperwork. They sat around a large table, completely covered in documents. Eventually, curiosity got the better of Seo Kwon. Hyeon-Woo, why are you even starting a guild? It's a hassle and definitely not easy. Hyeon-Woo replied casually, I just want to earn some money. Raiding labyrinths pays well, and if I manage my own dungeon, the cash will keep rolling in on its own. Si-hyun raised an eyebrow. But don't you already have more than enough money? Seo Young chimed in. Maybe he's like this because he had a tough childhood. Soon after, the new hunter interviews began. In one interview, Hyeon-Woo rejected a candidate. The applicant didn't take it well and protested, Among C-rank hunters, I'm one of the strongest. Did you even read my resume properly? Clearly irritated, Hyeon-Woo snapped back. I did read it, but if I don't like you, what are you going to do about it? He told the applicant to leave, leaving the others in the room confused, especially since the hunter had a reputation for clearing sea-level dungeons with ease. But Hyeon-Woo had his reasons. While the applicant's physical abilities checked out, his status revealed a strong tendency towards selfishness. That alone was enough for Hyeon-Woo to reject him. He realized then that the recent upgrade to his status authority skill was actually useful, something he had previously written off as pointless. But now, during interviews like this, it proved to be a valuable tool. After carefully reviewing each applicant's status one by one, Hyeon-Woo finally accepted 21 new members. After the interviews were over, Hyeon-Woo and Sae-hyun sat in the car, heading somewhere. Sae-hyun was surprised that Hyeon-Woo managed to finish all the interviews in just an hour and a half, despite the huge number of applicants. Hyeon-Woo casually replied, I just picked the ones who weren't in it for the money. That alone was enough. Still curious, Sae-hyun asked, You chose them based on their experience, right? Hyeon-Woo shook his head. Nope. As long as they have decent ability, that's fine. If there's a fight, I'll handle it myself. He continued, Come to think of it, not a single S-class applied. Si-hyun pointed out that S-class hunters are rare. There are only about 5,000 of them worldwide. Hyeon-Woo was surprised. Wait, 5,000? That sounds like a lot. So, what's your ranking among them? Sai-hyun calmly replied, This quarter, I'm ranked 163. Seo Kwan is 175. Seo Yong's 161. Hyeon-Woo commented, Not that high, huh? Si-hyun explained, Once you hit the top 200, everyone starts paying attention. It gets noisy, and people start flocking to us. Hyeon-Woo said, I once saw a list of the top S-class hunters on YouTube, but a lot of the names just disappeared. Why is that? Si-hyun answered seriously, Because they're dead. Hyeon-Woo asked again, But aren't S-classes supposed to be strong? How are so many of them dying? Si-hyun explained, Most of them die trying to find ST plus level artifacts. To level up, they need to leave the tower and gain EXP. Usually they can only climb 3 levels from where they start. If they want to go higher, they have to go deep into the labyrinth to find those ST plus artifacts. Hyeon-Woo asked, So labyrinths are basically the graves of S-class hunters? Si-hyun nodded. Exactly. And it's not just the labyrinths. Some hunters don't search for artifacts. They just kill others who find them. There are a lot of hunter-on-hunter killings out there. Hunters who kill other hunters like that are called hunter killers. Many of them end up being removed from the official S-class list. Eventually, they arrived at the dungeon taken from Ares, now called the Invisible Swamp, and officially under Hyeon-Woo's ownership. He told Si-hyun to head back first. He wanted to fight the regenerated boss and explore the deeper layers himself. Shortly after entering the dungeon, Hyeon-Woo heard a voice. Pleasure to meet you, Hyeon-Woo. Immediately suspicious, Hyeon-Woo asked, Who are you? Don't tell me you're with the Ares Guild. The man answered calmly. Correct. We were sent by the Ares Guild. Then his teammates stepped out from behind him. But we're not members of that guild. We're a group of hunters who kill other hunters. Then he asked, Have you ever heard of Pandemonium? Pandemonium, a name legendary among hunters. Just hearing it struck fear into people's hearts. They were a mercenary group made up of the world's top-ranked hunters. Many of them were in the S-class top 100, known for their unmatched killing power. They charged sky-high fees, and wherever they went, death followed. The members of Pandemonium were legendary killers, unmatched across the globe. Gunslinger Jack, rank 72, Bloodwine Asuo, rank 68, Master Aslan, rank 91, and finally, a powerful witch named Anya, rank 52, one of the strongest spellcasters alive. When Hyeon-Woo heard that Anya was ranked 52, he remarked, Rank 52? That's a pretty decent rank for a witch. Anya, clearly offended, snapped back, what nonsense. You're a hunter, and you've never heard of me? One of the top-ranked witches in the world? Hyeon-Woo, still calm, replied, I asked because I didn't know. Kind of funny, actually. That only made Anya more furious. She activated her magic immediately. A top 50 S-class hunter would still die at our hands. You know why? She cast Monobind toward Hyeon-Woo and continued, Because I'm Anya, the god of debuffs. But instead of panicking, Hyeon-Woo casually asked, Oh yeah? So, can you draw a proper magic circle? Anya was caught off guard. This is not the time for dumb questions. Can't you see the situation you're in? Remaining unfazed, Hyeon-Woo unleashed a menacing aura. I am assessing the situation. I asked because I need to decide whether I'm going to kill all of you or not. The sudden pressure from his aura made Anya tremble. Even as a top-tier witch, she could feel the overwhelming fear. Meanwhile, in China, in the city that serves as the headquarters of the Hyeon Guild, the atmosphere was tense and grim. Lee Do-cheon, ranked 82nd, was panting heavily in front of the leader of the Domination Guild, the one who had just turned their world into a nightmare. Surrounded by a pile of corpses that used to be members of the Hyeon Guild, the leader stood tall and unscathed. Gasping and in pain, Lee Do-cheon spoke, Even if I die here, our leaders are on their way. You think you can take them on by yourself? But the leader of the Domination Guild merely smiled at Lee Do-cheon's bluff. Irritated, Lee Do-cheon charged at him with his sword, closing the distance in a flash. The leader swiftly dodged his strike and said, Such a shame. That kind of skill is wasted on someone like you. But no matter. I'm in a hurry to meet the master. Without giving Lee Do-cheon a chance to react, he activated the destruction skill, one he had learned from Hyeon-Woo. In an instant, Lee Do-cheon collapsed, defeated. Back in Korea, Hyeon-Woo had just arrived at the Arang Guild headquarters in the Gwangjin district. But this time, he wasn't alone. He was dragging behind him the last remaining member of Pandemonium, Anya. I brought someone who can fix your magic circle, Hyeon-Woo said casually to Seo Yong. Still sobbing, Anya asked, Can I leave after I fix it? We'll see, Hyeon-Woo replied. Depends on how good your work is. As Anya began repairing Seo Yong's magic circle, Seo Yong couldn't hold back her curiosity. Hey, isn't she Anya, ranked 52nd in the world? Surprised, Hyeon-Woo muttered. Huh, I guess she really is a famous magic user, huh? Seo Yong continued. She was expelled for becoming a hunter-killer. How can you bring a criminal here? With his usual calmness, Hyeon-Woo replied, Once again, Ares Guild sent her team after me. She's the only one I could bring back. Seo Yong looked even more shocked. Her team? Don't tell me Pandemonium was after you, and you beat them all? Hyeon-Woo simply nodded. Seo Young, still in disbelief, asked again, "But your abilities aren't even at a level that could beat Pandemonium." Hyeon-Woo sighed. "Yeah, I think there's something weird about my powers too. But hey, that's what it says on the info screen." He added, "Anyway, she'll do a good job if you scare her enough. Don't worry, she's the type who'll do anything to survive." Then Hyun-Woo told Seo Young to keep an eye on Anya while he stepped out. "Where are you going?" Seo Young asked. "I got a gift," he replied. "Time to return the favor." He stopped by a convenience store, bought something, and looked up at the tall Ares Guild building. "I need to give them a little thank you gift," he muttered. When he arrived at Ares Guild HQ, their members blocked his path, telling him to leave. Hyeon-Woo calmly asked, "Your boss is in, right?" He pulled something out of the bag he just bought. "I came to give him a gift. I mean, no one's going to report me for using this, right?" He took out a toy hammer. Without hesitation, Hyeon-Woo started whacking Ares Guild members with the toy hammer. Despite being a toy, the blows clearly hurt. A lot. Inside the guild leader's office, one of the subordinates frantically called the boss. Even though he told him it was just a toy hammer, the pain in his voice said otherwise. The guild leader sighed. Hyun-Woo, that lunatic. But he's not your average lunatic. Who the hell storms an office wielding a toy hammer? If word of this gets out, Ares Guild's reputation will tank. Should I ask for help from headquarters? Number. If I do that, they'll think the Korean branch is incompetent and start questioning my position. Before the guild leader could figure out how to handle the situation, Hyeon-Woo had already smashed through the door. The sudden intrusion left the guild leader shocked as he quickly stood up. With a calm expression, Hyeon-Woo walked toward him and said, "Long time no see. How have you been?" Without giving the guild leader a chance to react, Hyeon-Woo swung his toy hammer straight into his face. "Let's start with one hit, then we talk." The blow sent the guild leader flying backward, crashing into the bookshelf behind him. Hyeon-Woo continued, "Not long ago, I asked for compensation. But instead, you sent hunter-killers after me. Are you that desperate to die?" Realizing that Pandemonium had been defeated by Hyeon-Woo, the guild leader finally asked, "What do you want for compensation?" Hyeon-Woo grinned. "Glad you're the one offering this time. Get the money ready. How about 20 billion won this time?" Grudgingly, the guild leader replied, "I'll prepare it." Hyeon-Woo placed the toy hammer gently on the guild leader's head and said, "I don't care how many people you send to attack me, but every time you do, make sure you send the compensation along with them. Now, you better call an ambulance unless you want your men to die." After Hyeon-Woo left, the guild leader fumed with rage and swore to take revenge. Since Pandemonium had failed, he needed someone on a completely different level. He couldn't ask for help from Ares Guild HQ, but he had another plan. He would go to China and bring back someone from there. The Emperor Dragon, an S-class hunter, ranked 5th in the world. At the same time, a nightmare was unfolding elsewhere. A climber had just destroyed the 8th floor of the tower. She was a woman with long white hair, horns, and an elven-like appearance. She was fighting the guardian of the 8th floor, who now looked like he was at his limit. She calmly stepped forward, counting her steps. 1, 2, 3, and on the 3rd step, the entire area was obliterated along with the guardian. Step 4, an even wider area was reduced to rubble, and on step 5, everything was annihilated without a trace. The climber spoke. So this time, extinction comes at step 5, not 10. With the 8th floor destroyed, she turned her eyes toward the next stage, the 9th floor, Earth. Guarded by Hyeon-Woo, leading her yokai army, she marched forward and said, "Let's make this gamble a bit more exciting." Back on Earth, the internet was buzzing. News was spreading fast. 47 ambulances had been spotted at Ares Guild's branch office. Sai-Hyun, standing beside Hyun-Woo, asked, "If Ares sues you, you could be arrested. Aren't you worried at all?" While looking at the news headlines, Hyun-Woo replied, "They were the ones who threatened me first. I was just defending myself. Besides, I used a toy hammer. Who's going to take that seriously?" Sai-Hyun countered, "How many people have been hospitalized because of that toy hammer again?" Hyeon-Woo told her not to worry. Then suddenly, something crossed his mind. "Oh crap, I've got a seminar. I can't be late, or I'll get fined." Confused, Si-Hyun asked, "A seminar? You mean the beginner seminar they offered you in Japan? Didn't you say it was too much of a hassle?" With a grin and a sparkle in his eye, Hyun-Woo replied, "They're paying me 50 million won. With that kind of money, anyone would feel motivated." While training a group of rookie hunters, Hyeon-Woo suddenly received a screen notification announcing that a new climber was ascending to the 9th floor. But this time, Hyeon-Woo didn't seem surprised at all. Instead, the rookie hunters around him were too busy filming Hyeon-Woo, who had now become a superstar in the hunter world. Cut to the next scene, where Hyeon-Woo is summoned to AV's office. Unable to hide his frustration, Hyeon-Woo questioned why his authority status hadn't increased, especially after defeating Cheonma. AV, clearly flustered, quickly explained that his authority status had indeed accumulated slightly, just not as fast as Hyeon-Woo expected. Hyeon-Woo was skeptical, but AV continued, "Which is why I can now share some information about the incoming climber." AV revealed that the new climber wasn't coming alone. Hyeon-Woo immediately assumed it was like the monster that appeared during the first rift. But AV corrected him, saying this was different. Unlike lower-tier climbers like the Scarlet Devil, who received system-generated monsters as buffs, this one was a mid-tier climber with abilities far superior to others of the same rank, even stronger than Cheonma. Rather than feeling alarmed, Hyeon-Woo saw this as the perfect chance to boost his authority status, if he could take the climber down. The scene shifts to the Arang Guild, where Hyeon-Woo visits to check the progress of a magic circle Anna was working on. Visibly anxious, Anna reported that the magic circle was nearly complete. She added that while it would take longer to activate, its performance would surpass the previous version. Hyeon-Woo instructed her to draw one more magic circle using her teleportation skill. Seo Yong, overhearing this, asked why Anna didn't just teleport away and escape. Frustrated and frightened, Anna explained that she couldn't activate her teleportation skill without the magic circle, so she had no choice but to stay. Just then, a screen notification appeared. The 9th floor climber had arrived, and their location was confirmed to be in Germany. Curious, Seo Yong asked, "Where do you need to go that you'd need teleportation?" Without hesitation, Hyeon-Woo replied, "Germany." Meanwhile, in Germany, at Leipzig Central Plaza, a massive rift erupted. The German government responded with full military force. Firearms, tanks, and top-tier hunters were all deployed to face the threat. Guildmaster Schweiger led the defense, but the climber remained eerily calm, even in the face of such firepower. Then, seeing the sheer number of human forces, the climber decided to call in reinforcements. From within the rift, horrifying creatures emerged, immediately shocking the human soldiers. With pride, the climber introduced herself. "I am the nightmare and imagination born from your fear of the dark. I am the ruler of all horrors in the night, the sublime manifestation, the usurper of courage, the leader of the wild hunt, the divine spectral queen." One of her allies, a massive centipede-like creature, crushed a building beneath its weight. Back elsewhere, Hyeon-Woo and Seo Yong were still discussing whether to wait for Anna to finish the teleportation circle or take an 11-hour flight to Germany. After learning that a rift had opened in Germany, Seo Yong asked, "You're really going there? So this time, you're going to stop the rift?" Hyeon-Woo nodded in agreement, as Seo Yong paused and thought to herself, "Does Hyeon-Woo really have the drive to do something this selfless?" Not long after, Hyeon-Woo saw a breaking news segment showing video footage of the climber in Germany. In the video, the climber declared, "Let's make this more exciting. The rules are simple. I'll stay in this city for the next 24 hours. If even one of you can defeat me within that time, I'll stop conquering this world and leave. You can challenge me alone or in groups, but if you fail, I'll start wiping out city after city. I'll be waiting." She said this with complete confidence. Christian Bergel, the director of the German Branch Association, was visibly frustrated after hearing the climber's declaration. Knowing that even Germany's top-ranked hunters couldn't match this climber's strength, he anxiously turned to a nearby staff member and asked, "What about the hunters we already dispatched?" "We've sent 32 S-class hunters and 68 A-class hunters. All of them failed," the staff member replied gravely. This situation was far more serious than what had happened in Japan. "We've already requested help from the International Association's top 5 S-class hunters, but none of them have responded." Just then, the staff member's phone rang. The director immediately told him to answer it. The staffer, whose face had been filled with tension just moments before, suddenly lit up with joy. He reported that help was on the way. Hunter Hyeon-Woo, the man who defeated Cheonma in Japan, was en route. Hearing this, Director Bergel's face brightened with relief. High above the German skies, a beam of purple light descended rapidly, landing atop a building. It was Hyeon-Woo, arriving via Anna's teleportation magic circle. Hyeon-Woo opened his eyes, amazed that he had arrived in Germany in mere seconds. Looking ahead, he spotted 2 of the climber's allies who had invaded the country hours earlier. One, a 6-armed giant, the other, a monstrous centipede. Without wasting a moment, Hyeon-Woo launched a powerful kick straight into the 6-armed giant's head. He then turned and delivered a punch to the centipede monster, sending it flying into a building. Grabbing one of its fangs, Hyeon-Woo demanded, "Who's your master?" The creature could only tremble and sweat nervously, too afraid to speak. Elsewhere, a live broadcast was showing the devastation in Germany. Buildings crumbling, entire blocks reduced to rubble. Amid the destruction, atop an overturned tank, sat a woman, none other than the climber, the divine spectral queen. Not long after, Hyeon-Woo approached her. The climber, sensing his presence, calmly said, "So, you're the first challenger?" With a cold tone, Hyeon-Woo replied, "If you wanted to show up, you could have done it quietly. Why destroy a whole city? Are you ready to take responsibility for that?" Annoyed, the climber responded, "Are you arrogant or just stupid? How dare you say something so ridiculous to me?" Hyeon-Woo smirked and shot back, "What does it matter if I'm arrogant or stupid?" The climber, who had been casually sitting on the overturned tank, now stood and glared at him. "I usually go easy on the first opponent," she said, "but you've already crossed the line. Let's see if you'll still be able to run that mouth of yours." She continued, "A dragon only lasted 5 steps. That arrogant human, supposedly the strongest, lasted 7. Let's see how many steps you can survive." Hyeon-Woo remained silent, puzzled by what she meant. The climber began counting her steps. By the second step, the ground trembled violently. Sensing something was off, Hyeon-Woo thought to himself, "This is magic energy. Her sorcery is spreading out, creating immense pressure. Each step is a trigger. I have to stop her before she takes another step." But the climber continued, reaching her fifth step, which caused the entire area to collapse into ruin. Refusing to stand by, Hyeon-Woo countered with his newest technique, the same one he used against Cheonma. Still, the climber pressed forward, reaching her seventh step, and suddenly, Hyeon-Woo's magic spiraled out of control. It wasn't just pressure anymore, she was absorbing his magic. Pain surged through his body, but Hyeon-Woo pushed on, charging straight toward her. Impressed, the climber remarked, "You're stronger than the so-called strongest human I've faced before." Then she took her ninth step. Before she could take the 10th, Hyeon-Woo launched his kick of destruction, but to his shock, the climber blocked it effortlessly. She casually grabbed his leg and, with a smile, said, "You almost interrupted my ninth step, but you won't stop my final one." She stepped forward again, the 10th step, and unleashed a level of devastation beyond comprehension. Hyeon-Woo felt the impact deep within, as if his very core was about to explode from the pressure of that 10th step. Yet, somehow, he was still standing. Seeing this, the climber couldn't help but applaud. "You're different from the others," she said, "because you survived. The destruction ends here. In the last stage, a city would have been wiped out by the 5th step alone." Badly injured and barely conscious, Hyeon-Woo muttered, "Insane." In his heart, he realized, this climber was even more powerful than Cheonma. The climber looked down at him and continued, "So, what now? You've endured my power, but it seems you can no longer fight. Will you beg for mercy, or preserve your pride and choose death?" But slowly, Hyeon-Woo lifted his battered body. He raised his head, his eyes sharp and unwavering, and pointed straight at her. "You forgot one more option. I destroy you." The climber burst out laughing, mocking yet intrigued. "You really are different from all those pathetic insects," she said, now preparing her next attack. "Very well. I'll show you my finest technique. I am the leader of the ruler of all horrors in the night, the divine spectral queen. Taste my true power." An overwhelming aura engulfed the air, even heavier than before. Then, she unleashed her ultimate magic, a devastating blow that slammed directly into Hyeon-Woo. The pain was unbearable, but at that very moment, a system notification appeared before him. Endurance level up. His resistance had grown, just enough for him to block the spell, even though his body felt like it was about to explode. Moments later, another notification popped up. Magic level increased. His magical power evolved, just like it had when he faced Cheonma. Exhausted, Hyeon-Woo tried to focus, digging deep into everything he had learned in the tower. While he was there, Hyeon-Woo trained under thousands of mentors, masters from web novels, comics, movies, and countless other sources. What others might call mere memories, to him were precious legacies, his true teachers. One technique came to mind, the destruction technique of Asura, a move that had once defeated an evil god in myth. Hyeon-Woo began to concentrate on that legendary technique. Slowly, his imagination turned to reality. 4 spectral arms emerged from his back, forming the 6-armed figure of Asura. Seeing this, the climber started to panic. She realized that if she didn't end this fast, she'd be in serious danger. She began her count again, but the first step was instantly stopped. Hyeon-Woo's spectral arms gripped her leg, halting her movement. Frustrated, she thought, there are still 8 more steps. This 10-step technique is too powerful to be interrupted like this. Even if I can't do the first properly, I just need to keep going. But as she tried to take her second step, another hand grabbed her foot. Once again, she was blocked. Annoyed, the climber knew this wouldn't work unless she found a way around it. She pushed on, forcing her third step. But Hyeon-Woo struck first, launching a newly learned technique, a burst of purple energy that slammed into her, halting her momentum. She was stunned by the sheer power. Losing her patience, she forced through the 4th step, triggering widespread destruction around them. The impact was immense, but Hyeon-Woo stayed on his feet. The climber laughed, thinking she had the upper hand. But just as she tried to take her 5th step, Hyeon-Woo stomped on her foot, stopping her cold. He now stood directly in front of her and said calmly, "Nothing compared to the last one." The climber froze, shocked, realizing her technique had been completely neutralized. Hyeon-Woo dropped into his stance. "My turn now?" In a flash, he unleashed his strongest move, Asura Flare Blast. It exploded with terrifying energy. He was sure this would end the fight for good. The powerful blast engulfed the climber, the divine spectral queen, wiping her out with nothing left behind. Right then, a system notification appeared. "You have defeated the divine spectral queen." The system summoned Hyeon-Woo into the system room. AV greeted him with a smile and congratulated him. She explained that thanks to this victory, Hyeon-Woo's authority, which had previously been at a low level, had now ranked up to lower mid-tier. Because of this, she invited Hyeon-Woo for an explanation of what this new authority meant. Surprised, Hyeon-Woo asked, "This is the first time I've been summoned right after beating a climber like this." AV replied excitedly, "That's because I was so happy, I just had to tell you immediately." Still curious, Hyeon-Woo said, Well, I hope you're also quick when it comes to explaining everything. Then he looked around and asked, This room, is it just me, or does it feel bigger? AV explained, Every time you defeat a climber and earn authority, the room I reside in evolves too. Now that you've reached the lower mid-tier, several changes have taken place, one of which is the ability to customize this system room. She continued, If you press that button while imagining the room you want, it'll instantly change to match your vision. Hyeon-Woo pressed the button, and the room transformed into the first floor of the tutorial tower. He imagined again, pressed the button, and this time it turned into a room that looked like a luxurious home. AV said, I understand how the button works, but I can't use it myself. And this is the first time I've ever seen a human inhabit a room on the 9th tier. Hyeon-Woo asked, Have you always lived in this room? AV replied flatly, Ever since I was created, I've always stayed here. When I'm tired, I just sleep on this bench. Seeing that, Hyeon-Woo felt a bit sorry for AV. He then asked, Besides that, what else has changed? AV explained, Your skills, authority status, and notifications have been upgraded. You've also gained a new skill called Entry. It lets you come here once a day without needing an invitation. Hearing that, Hyeon-Woo smiled. That'll make it easier if I ever have questions. AV nodded and added, Exactly. Hyeon-Woo pulled up his information screen and said, Since my authority level has increased, there's something I want to ask. Something about my info screen seems off. He continued, Even though my stats went up after defeating the Divine Spectral Queen, it feels like I'm much stronger than what's shown here. Can you explain that to me? AV replied, Now that you've reached the lower mid-tier, I can answer that. A lock was placed by the creator of the tutorial tower to prevent people from becoming stronger than necessary inside it. But that lock only affects the system's display, so the stats shown there don't reflect your actual abilities. Still confused, Hyeon-Woo asked, Can you explain it more simply? AV continued, Even though some information is restricted by the system, your body is still developing. As your level increases, so does your potential. Hyeon-Woo smiled and said, So then, how big is the gap between what's displayed and what I can actually do? AV shook her head. I can't give a clear answer. Your authority status is still too low. Annoyed by yet another answer blaming his low authority, Hyeon-Woo asked heatedly, When will the high-class climbers show up? I need to level up. AV trembled a little and responded, That would basically be the end of the world. The scene shifts to Shanghai, China, at the Wyon Guild Manor. Chaos has erupted, but this time, it wasn't caused by a climber. The one responsible was Hyeon-Woo's former student, now the leader of guild domination. She stood amid the burning ruins of the Wyon Guild and ordered her subordinates to play a high-definition video showing Hyeon-Woo in action during the German Rift. Watching the footage, the guild leader couldn't hide her awe. Her teacher was always more incredible than she could ever imagine. She then turned to her subordinate and asked, How many dungeons have we conquered across the country? Her subordinate replied, At the moment, we've taken over more than 92% of the dungeons. The remaining 8% are under the control of people who obey guild domination. So, basically, we've got the whole country covered. As the guild leader began to walk away, she said, The time has finally come to fulfill my promise. She then remembered the past, back in the tower, before her exit. She made a vow to her teacher. Once he came out, she would make sure he had the place he deserved, a seat at the very top. At the time, Hyeon-Woo smiled and said, Thank you. Back in Korea, Hyeon-Woo and his 3 friends were enjoying a quiet meal at a restaurant. As they ate and chatted, Seo-young suddenly asked, What made you stop the rift, Oppa? Si-hyun was also curious. Even Seo-kwan joined in. Hyeon-Woo replied casually, No real reason. But, if I had to say, I just enjoy beating up people who act tough. The 3 of them seemed unsure about his answer, but didn't press further. After the meal, Hyeon-Woo stared out the window at the tutorial tower. He recalled the moment it had suddenly appeared, bringing monsters with it and forcing people to enter. He had been dragged into the very first wave, but unlike the others, he had been trapped inside the tower for 12 long years, repeating the tutorial thousands of times. While the people who entered with him escaped, he was always sent back to floor 1 again and again. That's why he was determined, to find the answer to why the tutorial tower had imprisoned him in the first place. Lost in thought, his friends snapped him back to reality and asked if something was on his mind. As they began to leave, Hyeon-Woo replied, It's nothing. Don't worry about me. This video ends here, but the story isn't over yet. Don't forget to like and subscribe so you won't miss the next part.